A student named Fujihira explodes with fury when a light novel author kills his favorite character. Another student hammers his phone, howling in fierce agreement with his friend's outrage. Rage swallowed him whole. He went sickly pale and sweat poured off him, his fury turning him visibly ill. Classmates gawk as Fujihira hurls, while Yukikazu sneers, mocking him for aping novel protagonists. Yukikazu once devoured light novels, now he craves brutal, tactical military tales. He sits alone, jaw clenched, brooding that real-world concerns, like his allowance, matter far more. A friend barrels over and blurts, "Yukikazu, you're coming to English class with us, right?" Out of nowhere, his friend clutches his own throat, his body convulsing as an inexplicable agony rips through him. Yukikazu launches into a frantic shout, demanding to know what's wrong with his friend. In a heartbeat, the classroom explodes into chaos as students stagger and collapse to the floor. He spins, disbelief crashing over him, eyes wide as he cries out, "What's happening to everyone?" The first coherent thought ripping through his head, sprint to a teacher and flag them down for help. An otherworldly, inky energy coils and writhes, bending the air and warping reality around him. Reality warps violently as he's sucked into an unknown, swirling vortex. From the darkness, a mysterious voice slid out, calm as ice and intoned, "It's time to begin." The teacher bursts into classroom 2B, late, and hurls a breathless apology at the empty doorway. He peers inside and barks, "Take your seats, lesson starting." The teacher swings the door open and freezes. An immaculate classroom stares back, every desk gleaming, not a soul inside. Yukikazu drifts, out cold, in a strange void as a disembodied voice slices the silence and asks, "Who will it be?" A mysterious, disembodied voice ripped the question out of the textured darkness, again. Slowly crawling back from the edge of oblivion, Yukikazu claws through the fog in his mind, desperate to pin down where that voice came from. Terror ripped through him as he discovered his body was utterly paralyzed, limbs like dead wood, every muscle unresponsive. He whips his head around, every classmate hangs in the void, suspended and utterly helpless beside him. A tidal wave of frustration slams into him, and he claws at the air, frantically demanding answers about this bizarre nightmare. A brand new, unseen entity sweeps its gaze across the scene and realizes the crowd has exploded this time. Other voices surge into the mix, sparking a strange draft that will decide who ends up with whom. A single voice ripped through the air, incredulous that Yukikazu had stayed conscious through the entire process. It can't take its eyes off his resilience, crediting it to some rare gift or an iron constitution. The entity snaps its decision into place and seizes Yukikazu as its own. The voices croon with icy delight, praying the students will live longer so the entertainment never ends. A final, cruel warning ripped through the air, "Don't struggle, it's useless." Yukikazu's scream rips out as he's dropped, his body smashing onto the stone floor with a brutal crack. He and his classmates hit the ground in a tangled heap, dazed and blinking as their senses crawled back. They scan the pitch-black stonewall room, adrenaline spiking as panic claws at them, and they fight to pin down where they are. Yukikazu hauled himself upright, pulse drumming in his ears, scanning the strange place as he fought to get his bearings. They skid to a halt as looming, cloaked figures block their path and coldly confirm the summoning succeeded. He edges forward, every move cautious, voice tight as wire as he catches their attention and presses them for an explanation. Panic surged through the students as they gaped and pressed their captor with frantic questions about the bizarre outfit. A weathered old king steps into view and roars that they're warriors from another world. Yukikazu gaped, eyes blown wide, as the king's impossible proclamation detonated across the hall. A stunned roar rips through the room as students explode in disbelief, demanding to know what's really happening. The king, calm as a still ocean, beckons them to follow and witness the world with their own eyes. Two students snap, voices quivering as they demand to know where he's taking them. Yukikazu urged silence, cutting through the chatter as he hammered that they had to gather every scrap of information. His peers grit their teeth and forge a fragile truce, agreeing to cooperate for now. They marched down a long, vaulted corridor hewn from massive stone blocks. Students murmured in stunned awe, dubbing the grand structure a castle ripped straight from a fantasy. He swallowed hard, mind scrambling to comprehend how they'd pulled off transportation on such a colossal scale. The spiky-haired student exploded with excitement, shouting for everyone to look out the nearby window. A colossal, leathery dragon wing barrels past the window, whipping the air into a deafening whoosh. Yukikazu's eyes shot wide, shock ripping through him as the impossible sight suddenly burst into view. From the high balcony, they lock eyes with a colossal dragon, perched like a living siege engine atop the castle walls. The students froze solid, their faces torn between stunned disbelief and jaw-dropping awe. The king slammed his staff into the ground, snapping every eye back to him. He throws back his head and roars, "I am King Stora Kronlararia, do you finally believe me?" The king's voice cracked with raw desperation as he begged the warriors from another world to rescue them. In the briefing room, the king's voice booms as he warns the kingdom teeters on the brink, besieged by ravenous monsters. He snaps that they didn't handpick the students simply materialized in response. The king summons them to fight, vowing their unique gifts will finally bloom into blazing strength. Yukikazu barges in, cutting everyone off. "Wait, I have an important question that has to be answered first." He advances, locks eyes with the king, and asks if any path can lead them back to their world. The king's expression blackened, his eyes narrowing into cold slits at the direct question. He drops the bomb. The way back is buried deep within the dungeons they must storm. A chorus of terrified gasps rips through the students as they realize the only way home is to fight. Yukikazu throws up his hands, pleading for calm, then, voice cracking, admits panic claws at him too. A student gasps, voice trembling, "Was my summoning an accident? Did a damaged mechanism drag me here?" He snarls that Panic King won't solve a single one of their current problems. He rips through the facts with knife-sharp logic and urges them to try negotiating. He cries out for everyone to cooperate. Another student explodes in fury, tearing his calm, logical plea to shreds. Fujihira plants their feet, eyes blazing, and snaps, "Why should I follow a country driven only by its own selfish whims?" He roars they were the ones ripped from their families. Fujihira storms at the king, voice like thunder, demanding, "How will you take responsibility for their plight?" His friends lunge to restrain him, but he snaps, rage ripping through his voice. He's only telling the truth. One of his companions steps forward, voice raw, apologizes to the king, and admits they share part of the blame. The king's voice stays ice calm as he lays out a stark choice: step out from the castle's protection, if you wish. He swears he'll welcome them back, only if they ever return desperate and accept his terms. Yukikazu and a fellow student locked eyes and snapped to the truth. If they fought, they'd be protected. The king sweeps his arm toward the world outside, daring them to behold it and decide. Barreling through the city, they stop cold when a horned demon woman strides into view. It slams home. They're in another world. 6 students who chose to leave the castle stride through the streets, each step a drumbeat of defiance. Fujihira snaps, voice sharp as a blade, snarling at his companions to stop lecturing him and to never try to control him. He crowed his outcry was the only thing standing between them and being turned into pawns. He flashes a cruel smirk and brands his classmates as nothing but mindless NPCs and throwaway side characters. Yukikazu reels from the insult, fury flaring as he snaps, "What did you just say?" He plunges into the clash, voice steady and urgent, reminding Fujihira that the king said they could return. Yukikazu beams and declares the king's generosity. He'd personally showered them with coins and fresh clothes. He snaps that turning on each other would be madness, and his friends grudgingly agree. Exasperation snapped as they eyed Fujihira, a walking, otherworldly landmine primed to detonate. Fujihira seethed, tearing into his classmates for their incompetence and total failure to grasp the situation. They toss a sarcastic, "Enlighten us" his way. He grins, steps forward, and accepts with unshakable confidence. He smirked, crowing that other worlds like this one always boast adventurers' guilds. He jabbed a finger at the towering edifice and declared it the influential guild hall. My companion whoops, eagerly confirming his hunch and jabbing a finger at the gill. Inside, a stunning, pointed-eared receptionist beams at them and sweeps them into the guild with a warm, inviting smile. Fujihira bursts forward and boldly declares they'll join the ranks of adventurers this instant. Fujihira reels, disbelief cracking across his face, while the guild receptionist, calm and courteous, gently but firmly refuses his request. Cool as a midnight tide, Yukikazu dropped the solution, used the king's official voucher as identification. The receptionist lays out the mandatory 2-year military service, and Fujihira snaps, rage detonating through him. He clutches his skull and howls that this world has shattered his isekai dream. Yukikazu scrambles to calm him, but Fujihira keeps railing against the infuriating rules. Fujihara bellows, "I'll do as I please," and storms out of the guild. Dread coiled in Yukikazu's gut as the receptionist casually dropped military enlistment, and he feared his friend's rash actions would explode into chaos. A companion urges letting him go, but Yukikazu's jaw hardens. He refuses and bolts after him. Spotting the peril of being alone, Yukikazu vows to his friends he'll be back soon. The shot slams into the city streets, revealing unmistakable European-style architecture, ornate facades, narrow cobblestone lanes, and soaring spires. Yukikazu storms the alleyway, tearing through shadowed corners with a pounding heart. Where did his hot-headed friend bolt off to? He tore through the city, bellowing Fujihiro with every ragged breath. From the shadows, a hand lunged and yanked his scarf. Yukikazu's eyes snapped wide with alarm as he was yanked violently backward. He's boxed in by a ring of snarling thugs, their leader smirking like he owns the night. The leader pins an ornate dagger to his throat and hisses a low warning, "Lend a hand now." Yukikazu stammered that his pockets were nearly empty, blood running cold, as he realized this world swarmed with thugs. He chokes out a raw gasp, his face twisting into a mask of pain from the sudden blow. A savage punch to the gut slams into him, folding him double. The thug leader, face twisted with rage, barked for him to hand over every last one of his valuables. One thug shrugs like he's choosing dinner and grins, "Kill him, take everything." A cold truth crashes over Yukikazu. This world is brutal, and he's finally grasping just how deadly it really is. A stark black panel, brushstrokes slashed like claws, screams his mounting desperation. Panic rips through him and he bellows, pleading for anyone to come help. A silver-furred blur rockets into his attacker, the impact driving a bone-jarring shock straight through him. The thug's dagger, ornate with cruel flourishes, flew from their grip and clattered uselessly onto the stone pavement. Yukikazu snatches a glimpse of silver fur as his savior rips by in a lightning-fast blur. His eyes snap wide, disbelief slamming through him as he recognizes the shape of a wolf. One of the remaining thugs snarls, demanding to know who the newcomer is. A towering, muscle-bound werewolf stands poised, every sinew coiled as a savage growl rips from its throat, pure feral rage. The werewolf tore a thunderous roar from its throat as raw power rolled outward in rippling waves. It slams its fist into the cobblestone with bone-shattering force. The stone burst into a spiderweb of cracks beneath the blow's immense, shattering force. The lone thug screams, terror ripping from his lungs as the sheer display of power crushes his will. Panic rips through them, the terrified thugs bolt, scrambling and crashing out of the alley in a desperate, blind sprint. Yukikazu drops to the dirt, frozen and speechless as a brutal rescue suddenly explodes around him. He craned his neck to stare at the mysterious figure who'd saved him, all roaring in his chest. A mighty werewolf towers beneath a shattered moon, its silhouette slashing across the midnight sky. The creature's razor-bright, calculating eye snaps to the young man and locks onto him. Yukikazu's words knot in his throat as he stammers, hunting for anything to say to his rescuer. A hulking werewolf towers over him as panic seizes his tongue and his words splinter into breathless, incoherent fragments. A panic squeak rips from his throat as the creature inches in, its face a breath away. Out of nowhere, the werewolf's feral snarl melts away, and it breathes a soft, almost tender woo. Spotting the scrape, the creature darts forward, hands poised to tend Yukikazu's scraped arm. It plucks a strip of its own cloth and expertly knots it around his arm as a bandage. Yukikazu's thanks catch in his throat as the werewolf pulls him into a firm, calming embrace. The city's rooftops explode into view, the exact battleground where that explosive, heart-stopping encounter ripped through the night. His friends burst in, relief exploding from them the moment they see he's safe. Yukikazu stammers out an explanation, cheeks burning and voice quaking, still clearly undone by what just happened. He whirls around and, voice raw with gratitude, thanks the werewolf for stepping in at the last second. The werewolf whirls and lopes away, its task seemingly complete. Yukikazu watches his savior stride away, admiration blazing across his face. He huddles with his friends, voice low and urgent, whispering that the werewolf was jaw-droppingly cool. A friend jabs a finger at the cloth on his arm and declares, "That's military issue." The guild receptionist leans in, voice tight, "Are you injured?" He shrugs, flashes a crooked grin, and dubs it nothing more than a scuffle. The receptionist snaps. He must have been saved by a soldier. The final realization slams into Yukikazu like a lightning bolt, shattering his certainty and leaving him reeling. A grainy transition panel slams into view, ripping time forward and hurling us into a new scene. In his room, Yukikazu crashes onto his bed, pulse racing as he replays every wild twist of the day. Stranded in a foreign world, he admits the pull to return claws at his heart without mercy. He admits a growing excitement, roaring to life inside him for this new world. A question burns in him: can he become a soldier and rush to save those crying out for help? A fierce hunger to set off on adventures with someone like the one who saved him ignites in his chest. A colossal, official-looking edifice dominates the skyline of the new world. They crowd the dinner table, eyes burning with resolve, and hammer out the plan for their next move. His friends bolted back to the castle, shouting that everything beyond its walls had turned deadly. One of them whirls toward Yukikazu and snaps, "What's your move now, Yukikazu?" Sitting alone beneath a cold light, Yukikazu's fists lock as he grapples with a decision poised to rewrite his life. He sizes up the castle's safe embrace against a roaring hunger to take up arms and become a soldier. He scoffs at the herd and carves his own path. Following everyone else would be unbearably boring. His friends stand frozen, worry written on every face, holding their breath as he prepares to announce his choice. A heartbeat of hesitation, then he shattered the silence and declared his final decision. He declares he'll attempt to become a soldier, finally answering the secret call he's carried in his heart for years. His face contorts in raw strain, jaw locked, veins bulging, every breath a fight from the brutal new training. Yukikazu throws you into his first day of military service, shipped straight to boot camp. He and the other recruits thunder down the endless track, heavy packs ripping at their shoulders with every brutal step. The scene snaps back, hurling us into the group's visit to the Loraria Adventures Guild. The receptionist beams, taps the terminal, and announces they can view their game-like status right there. A gloved finger darts forward and taps the terminal's glowing screen. A holographic display flares to life, blasting Yukikazu and Hino Keijoshi's stats across the air. They gasp, insisting the world's elements are nothing but slick digital code laid out for anyone to read. The two friends lean in, eyes alight, eagerly dissecting each other's unique charge skills. Yukikazu's eyes snap to another, far more bewildering stat flashing on his display. He spins to the receptionist and presses her to explain what erosion rate actually means. The receptionist turns to him, bafflement flashing across her face. She's never heard that word. Back at boot camp, Yukikazu winces as the erosion rate's brutal pace flashes through his mind. He claws through memory, desperate to pin down the exact description of that strange, gnawing unease. Lost in thought, he stumbles and slams to the ground, instantly snagging the attention of a female recruit. She barreled over, relief crashing through her when she saw he was okay, and cried out for him to give it his all. The instructor's razor voice snapped through the room, bellowing that their short break is over. The command barks, "Keep running and hammer your bodies into relentless machines." Yukikazu scans the ranks as many trainees crumble, gasping and lagging under the relentless pace. He wonders if a single thought could ignite his mysterious skill. A determined grin flashes across his face as he screams LCHARGUE inside his head. He explodes forward with an inhuman, blistering burst of speed. He jolted, his gaze snapping to his body as disbelief crashed over him. From the sidelines, the female recruit watches intently and declares he's passed the exercise. Yukikazu's exhaustion melts away as a brand new, overflowing power surges through him. Later after training, a strange, crawling itch ripples across his back. He yanked his uniform open to reveal a glowing, web-like pattern crawling across his chest. A mysterious spiderweb pattern erupts into view. What could it possibly be? At the terminal, Yukikazu watches the display scream that his erosion rate has skyrocketed from using L-charge. Haunted by the tattoo's sudden vanishing and the crushing fatigue that followed, he vowed to summon its power only when necessary. He cuts through a motley boot camp, losing himself in a daydream about meeting the wolfman who saved him. He watches senior soldiers mercilessly bully a fresh recruit, barking that he must know his place. Caught staring, one of the bullies storms up and snarls in his face. The furious bully spits, "You cocky little," and lunges, swinging a fist straight at him. Out of nowhere, a tiny pig-like creature bursts into view and throws itself into the strike, taking the blow full on. The creature hurtled through the air, slammed into the ground, and let out a soft, pained cry. The bullies froze, jaws dropping and eyes bulging, thrown into bewildered silence by the sudden, bizarre interruption. Tottering and spent, the creature stares at itself, croaks, "What am I?" and pleads with the group to rest. Deciding the scrap's not worth it, the bullies scoff and swagger away. Yukikazu forces out a weary sigh, the encounter he just witnessed gnawing at him. Another recruit dropped to one knee beside the small creature and gently asked, "Are you all right?" Later, Yukikazu's gaze snaps to that same creature again, this time rocking a crisp, impossibly neat outfit. He freezes, an astonished cry locked in his chest, as the creature's shockingly elegant appearance slams into him. A fellow recruit sneers, shrugging the creature off as a mere orc, and snapping that he should ignore it. Yukikazu's jaw drops. This creature shatters every image of the monstrous orcs he's only ever known from games. His eyes lock on the fluffy, silver tail, and memories of his wolfman savior crash over him. The instructor's bark shreds the quiet, yanking every recruit upright as he booms, "Fall in, assemble now." They're corralled into a cavernous barracks jammed with bunk beds, their home for the next 2 months. The instructor jabbed at the top bunk and barked, "Tatsuka Yukikazu, you're taking it." A harsh voice boomed that the creature Bulkress would be his partner on the lower bunk. Yukikazu's breath stutters as recognition hits. Boltcrest is the same creature from that earlier hallway incident. The instructor hammered home the fundamental rule. In a 2-man cell, partners must cover each other's backs. Yukikazu flashes a warm, friendly grin, introduces himself, and suggests they be friends. Boltcrest cocks its head, turning to look back with a blank, questioning stare. The tiny orcs shrink back, letting out nothing but a soft, trembling whimper. Yukikazu lowers his gloved hand to enfold Boltcrest, tiny one, forging a quiet pact of friendship. A chorus of sneers ripped from the recruits as they derided the pairing, faces twisting at the thought of sleeping above an orc. Yukikazu sees the town's hatred for orcs, slams his hand down, and proclaims they're all soldiers from the same camp. He pivots to Boltcrest, beams a warm, steady smile, and declares to the orc that he's absolutely fine with him. He grins and dubs the orc Bull. His real name's a ridiculous mouthful. Bull burst into a jubilant whoop, his fluffy tail whipping through the air with pure excitement. 2 relentless weeks of boot camp have pushed Fujihara straight to the brink of a serious crisis. He twisted his face into a cartoonish grimace and bellowed that the camp food was inedible. On his day off, he prowls the town, stomach growling and hunting something delicious to eat. A companion locks onto a distant, familiar silhouette and shouts, "Tatsuka." Tatsuka, bow slung, armor blazing, strides up to Fujihara and bellows, "Where have you been?" Fuji grins, says he's in the military, and soaks up a rare, hard-earned day off. Tatsuka's expression flickers, eyes sharpening as he weighs Fujihara's predicament. He leans in, crowding her, practically vibrating with excitement as he insists they sit down for tea together. A nearby acquaintance can't help asking if soldiers are poor, while Fujihara, silent and steady, quietly counts himself blessed. Tatsuka sneered, tearing Fujihara's decision to enlist in the military to shreds. A plate of cookies perches on the table between the two as their tense conversation crackles and snaps like live wires. Tatsuka snarls at Fujihara, "You idiot, get used to this world." Fujihara snaps he could dig up treasure with his eyes shut, sneering that Tatsuka is just the country's loyal dog. Tatsuka's face crumpled as Fujihara's casual, disrespectful barb slammed into him. He explodes out of the cafe, slamming the door behind him as Fujihara mutters, "What an annoying person he is." The waitress slams the check onto the table and declares Fujihara must cover his companion's bill. A furious cry of "Fujihara" explodes through the streets, ricocheting off the town's buildings. Rage boiling in his veins, Fuji storms off, swearing he'll exact his revenge the next time they meet. Rage drains away as the memory of delicious cookies and thoughts of his fellow recruits flood his mind. He burns to know how the rest of his classmates are holding up, safely behind the castle walls, or out there holding their own as bold adventurers. His calm thoughts snap as a piercing scream erupts from the street. A citizen screams, "Run," a desperate warning that rips through the crowd as a horse barrels in at full speed. Hooves pounding, 2 thunderous horses rip the carriage into a runaway sprint, tearing down the crowded street. A woman on horseback screams, terror ripping from her as she cries for little Eric in the road. Realization slams into Fujihara, he won't make it to the child in time. Bolt rockets forward, yanking the boy out of the path as thundering hooves roar past. Fujihara screams "Bolt" as shock and raw relief crash over her at his lightning-fast action. The boy lies safe on the ground as his mother hurtles toward him, worry blazing in her eyes. She snatched him into a crushing embrace, tears and laughter exploding as relief slammed into her. He was okay. The crowd roared, hailing Bolt's lightning reflexes and gasping at how razor-close that near miss was. Fujihara curses himself for blanking on his L-charge the moment he needed it. Relief twisted into white-hot fury as she snapped, "How dare Bolt push my son?" Fujihara freezes, speechless, reeling as a sudden, misplaced fury erupts inside her. She yanks Eric away, spitting venom as she snarls that Bolt is a filthy, evil creature. The young boy whips a glance over his shoulder, confusion tangled with sorrow across his face. Bolt stands alone as whispers snake through the crowd, spitting cruel, baseless rumors about his intentions. Fujihira stares, worry coiling in his chest, whispering bolt like a prayer. Her cry of thief rips through the crowd, exposing a hooded figure who just snatched her purse. Fujihira cries out, crushed beneath relentless danger. This new world offers no safe harbor. Bolt rockets into action, every muscle taut and his gaze razor-focused with fierce determination. Bolt shot forward like lightning, tackled the thief, and sent him sprawling onto the ground. Fujihira stared, stunned by his companion's lightning speed, and shouted, "Amazing, that was flawless work." Bolt snatched the stolen bag and thrust it back into its owner's hands, duty burning in his veins. She lurched back, revulsion blazing in her eyes as she shrieked, "Stay away from me, you filthy creature." She explodes, shrieking that Bolt staged the entire theft to bask in everyone's gratitude. She unleashes a piercing scream for the guards, accusing the monster of being the mastermind behind the crime. Fujihira froze, disbelief slamming into him as he glared at the absurd, unjust twist and barked, "How could this be?" He steps in, flashing a disarming smile, imploring the hysterical woman to calm down. He spins a lie in a heartbeat, swearing Bolt retrieved the bag at his command. As they stride away, he catches the woman's incredulous whisper, "It's strange to see an orc standing side by side with a soldier." She snaps, it's a cruel training exercise preying on a lowly monster. They darted into a shadowed, secluded alley, instantly safe from prying eyes. Fujihira erupts into a thunderous roar, storms the crowd and bellows, "What's wrong with the people in this town?" He crumples against the wall, voice raw as he asks Bolt, "Have you always been treated like this?" Bolt's silent, sorrow-filled stare screams the brutal truth. He's met with relentless prejudice. Fujihara's eyes snap open. He finally grasps the deadly truth behind the order to cover each other. Boot camp abuse explodes back into his mind, and it hits him hard. Only orcs take the brunt of the discrimination. Snarling, contorted faces of the prejudiced townspeople exploded through his mind. Gratitude floods him. Bolt, like the wolfman, earned our thanks for doing the right thing. He nudged Bolt's ribs with a soft prod, grabbing his attention and snapping him out of his sorrowful reverie. Bolt snaps his head up and emits a sharp, questioning yelp, eyes asking plainly, "What do you want?" Fujihira grabs his shoulder, eyes blazing, tells him not to be sad and swears he'll take full responsibility for everything. Bolt's calm snaps and agitation explodes into sharp, urgent yelps that claw for his companion's attention. Fujihira urges him bluntly, "Don't hold back, say exactly what's on your mind." Bolt scans the shadows, eyes snapping to every corner, hunting for any sign they're being watched. He pummels the nearby poster, desperate to drive an urgent message home to Fujihira. A single fingertip jabbed the poster, its surface smothered in strange, angular runes. Bolt jabbed a finger, biting off "if" and "you" in crisp beats so Yukikazu could catch every sound. The tiny creature's face crumpled into a haunted, worried mask. Yukikazu locks eyes with Bolt and speaks, his face a mask of grim resolve. Out of nowhere, a crushing blow slammed down, erupting in a thunderous thud. Yukikazu crumpled to the cobblestones, landing face first. Bull bellows a warning, his voice tearing the air as he stares at his fallen friend. A hooded man lunged, yanked Bolt into a vice-like grip, and snarled that Bolt still owed the orc for what happened earlier. The thugs lock onto Yukikazu's soldier uniform, sneer and shrug, convinced there won't be a single witness. A razor-sharp blade pressed like ice to the unmoving throat of the unconscious Yukikazu. Bolt's eyes shot wide, terror and gut-wrenching anguish ripping through him for his friend. The captor loomed over Bolt and snarled, "Don't you move an inch." He spat that he'd crack Yukikazu's skull open the instant Bolt even thought about resisting. The thugs snarled, dangling Yukikazu's life like bait, join their vendetta, and they'll let him live. Sweat beads on Bolt's brow as terror claws at his chest. An impossible choice glares before him. His eyelids slam shut, as if he's surrendering to the fate bearing down on him. A thug coughs. Bolt unleashes a shrill, ear-splitting scream that rips through the air. Yukikazu rockets to his feet, pins the thug under him, and snarls he'll snap his neck. Bolt froze as someone screamed his name into the charged, tense air. A punch of realization slams into Yukikazu. He realizes Bolt saved the young boy from before. Later he confesses to Bolt, voice raw, that shock had pinned him to the spot. Tears welled in his eyes as he roared praise for his companion's bravery. He roared, heart on fire, that Bolt was insanely cool. A flashback slams into the present. A furious brawl erupts, fists and boots flying in a cramped, narrow alley. Rage exploded in Yukikazu as he snarled he'd kill the man who dared interfere. An invisible strike detonates against him, blasting him skyward. Bolt stormed in alone and tore through the armed thieves, leaving none standing. Seated amid the chaos, Yukikazu freezes, eyes blown wide as awe crashes through him and he can only watch. They obliterated the city's notorious threat, and the people roared their thanks. Later, the two companions tear into a steaming plate of pasta together. Yukikazu gags at the foul taste and desperately wants a thank you letter. A man storms in, shouting that an unaddressed letter has just arrived at reception. Yukikazu's face ignites into a dazzling grin, his heart pounding as he prays it's a thank you letter. A brief thank you for the rescue stares up from the paper, Eric's name scrawled beneath. Two others peered at the letter, suspicion flaring. Was this just a child's prank? Yukikazu's heart leaps. It's from the boy Bolt saved from the carriage. Bolt's composure snaps. He erupts into a roaring flood of tears. He crumples at the table, sobs tearing through him as Yukikazu watches, visibly moved. Yukikazu's soft, knowing smile blooms as his friend delivers a heartfelt-sounding yet hollow reaction. 2 months later, Yukikazu barreled up to Bolt, practically buzzing, and breathlessly revealed their new mission. Boot camp barely behind them, they're being catapulted straight into a dungeon. He crackles with hunger for the bounties and monster hunts waiting ahead. He recalls the dull, grinding drills, and his heart hammers against his ribs with electric excitement. They burst into the Amalovia Adventure Guild, the buzzing dispatch point where every quest ignites. Inside, the atmosphere is rough. Adventurers slam tankards and bellow stories at each other. Yukikazu storms into the guild and recoils. It's a filthy den, like a nest for delinquents. He freezes as a whisper reaches his ears. Another recruit joining their party is a girl. The young woman in uniform beams, ecstatic they were dispatched together. He boomed Tatsuka Yukikazu, then swept his hand to his companion and added, Bulkress. She fires, "Are you from another country?" and he clamps up, spitting out only vague, guarded replies. She admits worry gnawed at her, but teaming up with someone she knows anchors her. Yukikazu falters at her presence, a faint blush creeping across his cheeks. He can't stop thinking how utterly, jaw-droppingly cute she is. A new voice crashes in, barking, "Are you the new recruits?" A mustachioed man strides forward and booms, "I'm your Torbik Sener." He demands Fillain, the young woman, step forward now. Torbik leans in, buries his nose in her hair and inhales sharply, his blunt, unmistakable welcome into the unit. Yukikazu gapes, disbelief blazing in his eyes as his commander shamelessly flirts with Fillain. Torbik suddenly points and proclaims he can see dust speckling the other recruits' shoulders. He condemns them to 30 brutal minutes of non-stop push-ups. Yukikazu's jaw hits the floor when the commander exempts Fillain from the exercise. He and Bolt dive headfirst into a savage punishment, slammed up against a brick wall. Torbich sneered a mocking welcome, and Yukikazu choked out a shaky thank you. The commander thundered, "No talking during punishment." Yukikazu crumples, utterly spent, and Fillain bolts to his side. Torbik towers over him, forcing a stiff, formal thank you from his lips. With Fillain's help, he claws himself upright and rips the words from his throat. For his trouble, Torbik slams another 30 minutes onto the punishment. He snaps, sees Fillain, everyone else, fall back and return later. Yukikazu gapes, horror pinning her to the spot as the men drag her away. He crashes his fist into the ground and roars, frustration exploding out of him. Fear for Fillain's safety explodes in him. He and Bolt sprint flat out to finish their task. He bellows, desperation fraying his voice, "We've finished the push-ups." He barrels in and skids to a halt. Fillain stands there, striking and scandalous in a revealing bunny girl outfit. Torbik spits a hollow apology with a sly smirk, then drops the next task they'll tackle together. In the forest, he orders the recruits into the perilous depths of the woods. Yukikazu's memory snaps to the legendary description of the priceless dovegrass herb. Fillain lunged, seizing his sleeve, and urgently urging him to stay and share tea instead. Torbik's smirk slices the air as he sneers that, in that outfit, she's nothing but a burden and easy prey. Seething at the commander, Yukikazu grabs Bolt's arm and barks for him to dash into the forest. Fillain watched them leave, quiet concern tightening like a band across her chest. Deep in the woods, Bolt tore through a massive saber wolf like it was nothing, felling the beast with a single effortless strike. He towers over the slain beast as its pack bolts away in frantic terror. Yukikazu resigns himself to the rear, convinced his only role is to support them from behind. Heart hammering, he gapes at the yawning level gulf between him and his devastatingly powerful companion. Determined to prove his worth, he storms the hills to gather the medicinal herbs himself. He hurtles forward, missteps, and tumbles headfirst into a dense, tangled bush. He scrambles to his feet, a ragged grunt of pain ripping out after that clumsy tumble. Right before him, he spots a patch of the rare Dover grass and recognizes it in a heartbeat. They return to find Torbeck and his men sprawled around the camp, lounging with careless ease. Yukikazu stormed back with baskets overflowing, rage boiling when they saw the others still hadn't budged. Torbich flicks his hand, eyes iced over, and snaps a curt, dismissive command at one of his men. He clicked his tongue, eyes razor-sharp, hunting for any slip-up he could pounce on to tear into the recruits. Finding nothing wrong, he orders them all to head back. He snaps an order, forcing the recruits to shoulder the empty brackets as a humiliating badge of their failure. Yukikazu and Bolt froze, jaws dropping, as an absurd, degrading order slammed into them. Torbich's sneer sliced the air as he coldly warned them that unimportant people could be executed at any moment. Dread snaps through Yukikazu. This isn't petty irritation anymore, it's become outright dangerous. A shadowed whisper slithers into his skull, hissing that killing the commander would be easy. He trembled, his mind scrambling to trace where that terrifying thought had come from. A foreign fury explodes from deep within Yukikazu's body. He clamps his cloak in a white-knuckled grip, fighting to choke down the storm of feeling boiling up inside him. Bolt, his tiny companion, shot his gaze upward and let out a sharp, questioning squeak packed with worry. Yukikazu murmurs Bolt's name, his face carved into a mask of inner turmoil. He clamps his jaw and forces himself still. One move and Bolt will be punished right beside him. Trebuch, their superior officer, roared at his men and branded them pigs with savage, relentless insults. Bolt bursts into an excited yelp as Yukikazu rummages through his pouch for herbs. He snatches up a handful of Dover herbs Bolt had slyly stashed away. Yukikazu strode away from the scene, heaping praise on his companion's lightning-quick thinking. He braced himself, visions of the hellish ordeal waiting for them after their return clawing at his mind. A hilarious flashback bursts in, yanking them into scrubbing duty as they frantically wipe down surfaces and snap beds into perfect order. The narration roared, recounting the endless gauntlet of menial chores they were forced to slog through. At 3 a.m, bleary-eyed Yukikazu blurts out the truth. Trebuch partied all night. Bone-deep exhaustion douses his anger. He just wants somewhere to collapse and sleep. He flings the door open and recoils. His fellow recruit is inside. She slumped in a chair, asleep, dirt smeared across her face from sheer bone-deep exhaustion. His chest clenched, she'd stayed up, waiting for them out of pure kindness. A slammed door rips Fillain from sleep, and Yukikazu's voice trembles with worry. Guilt slammed into him. He hurled himself into a bow and blurted a frantic apology. Her quiet reply slices through the silence. He shoots his head up, stunned. They howl, crushed by the belief they're useless, just a decoration for the day. Yukikazu snapped, ripping her claim apart and insisting, with iron certainty, that the exact opposite was true. She snapped her head up, stunned as his sudden words of gratitude struck her like a thunderclap. He explains her presence was the only thing stopping Travis from going completely off the rails. He cracked a warm grin and declared, "We're even now." Bolt shoots a thumbs up, grinning, his whole body shouting, "I agree." Fillain leans in, rapt and razor-sharp, and the guarded steel of her expression melts at his kindness. A heartbeat of doubt, then she breathed a soft yes. A radiant smile erupts across her face, determination blazing for them all. Her genuine smile slams into him, and the surge of their newfound camaraderie electrifies his whole heart. They trade hushed goodnights, the air crackling with the aftershock of that heartfelt moment. His spirit healed, Yukikazu stretches and collapses into a well-deserved rest. He cracked open the door to his own room. It answered with a soft, decisive click. He burst inside and discovered his room utterly ransacked, drawers torn open, clothes strewn, everything overturned. The next day cracks open with their superior striding in, smirking, and flinging a smug announcement at them. Lounging with Leela, Trebuch leans back, flashes a grin, and tells the recruits bluntly, "You've got a new job." He dubs it a simple bounty elimination mission and drops it squarely into their hands. His smirking cronies jab a finger at the rendezvous and crow that the bounty's waiting right there. Yukikazu erupts, demanding more intel before they head into their first mission. Rage boiling over, Trebuch hurled his teacup, and it smashed into shards inches from Yukikazu's head. He sneered, "Did your ears just go deaf, recruits?" Clad in her bunny outfit, Leela watches, worry carved into her face. Trebuch's cruel sneer twisted his face as he roared, "Get out of my sight." Resignation knotting their guts, Yukikazu and Bolt slip into a pitch-black cave, dread of their commander fueling every quiet step. They both freeze, breath snatched away, as the shocking sight before them sinks in. A colossal, scaled, clawed foot thunders onto the cavern floor, shaking the whole cave. A towering armored lizardman warrior looms before them, scales glinting and sword raised, poised to strike. Cold dread claws at Yuki Kazu as they realize Trebuch is trying to kill them. Bolt strikes, recoils, the creature's armor just shrugs off his hit, it's far too thick to pierce. The lizard man whips around, cold realization hitting him, their ambush has failed. They're cornered in the cave, face to face with a hulking, weapon-wielding monster. With his mind racing, Yukikazu hatches a daring escape plan and rigs an L-charge to blast his way free. He hurls a breathless apology at Bolt, no time to explain the maneuver. He locks eyes with his companion and pleads for his trust. Bolt declares, "I've got your back," his voice edged with iron resolve and steady trust. Muscles taut, they spring into readiness as the lizard man coils, poised to strike. Yukikazu channeled every last scrap of energy into a desperate, all-or-nothing dash to break free. He bellows, ignites the skill, and snatches the curled-up Bolt. They rocket past the wide-eyed lizard man and slam into him with a devastating spinning tackle. For a split second, hope explodes in Yukikazu's chest. They flee, then a massive cleaver slashes out of the shadows, ripping their escape apart. He snaps his head up, shock exploding in his chest, as a second lizard man suddenly slithers into view. The blow detonates, hurling them into the ground with a bone-jarring crash. Two formidable warriors tower over the crumpled, trapped recruits. The truth slammed into Yukikazu. Trebuch had deliberately hidden that they were facing two enemies. He seizes his unconscious companion Bolt, shakes him mercilessly, and screams his name, desperate to rouse him. A silver flash detonates as a lone figure cuts both foes down. Yukikazu's head snaps up, jaw dropping as awe slams into them at the sight of their mysterious savior. Triumphant, she stands, a breathtaking woman with long white hair streaming behind her and a gleaming rapier clutched in her hand. Her face hardens into a stern mask, but a compassionate light lingers in her eyes as she regards the fallen recruits. He staggered back, eyes wide, as she tore through both lizard men with one devastating blow. She bursts onto the scene, roaring their names as she lands with seconds to spare. Fillain darts to their side, voice cracking as she blurts out how desperately relieved she is that they're safe. She says she strong-armed reluctant Travis into coming to help. Travis arrives and freezes, terror carved across his face the moment he spots Leela at senior night. He swallows hard, heart-hammering, and stammers, "Why is the formidable senior knight here?" He spits a pathetic lie, insisting the recruits ran off on their own. With cold fury at her side, Leela yanks her sword free and levels the blade at Trebuch. He reels back, panic clawing at his throat, as she moves with lightning-fast, unhesitating precision. Her gaze turns to ice as she snaps his full title at him, each syllable a blade. She snarled that she'd seen his acts, monstrous and beyond redemption, with her own eyes. Leela vows she will not forgive him for desecrating their country with his monstrous actions. Her eyes went cold as she said killing him now might be the wiser choice. Crushed and broken, Trebuch crumples to the ground, clawing at the earth and pleading for forgiveness with ragged desperation. Yuki Kazu stares, cheeks burning, absolutely overwhelmed by Leela's jaw-dropping cool. Fillain's voice snapped. The superiors have been digging into Trebuch for a long time. She clutches a fragile hope that their treatment will finally improve. Yukikazu shouted her name, his face a storm of concern and confusion. Leela darted to Fillain's side, voice raw as she asked, "Are you all right, after that harrowing ordeal?" Fillain grudgingly concedes the special treatments a little too much. Leela nods, a quiet, knowing smile curling at the corner of her mouth. Dumbfounded, Yukikazu gapes. How could Fillain possibly know someone that important? The other soldiers watch in ragged silence, shoulders slumped and breath shallow after the tense confrontation. It hits him there are still too many unanswered questions about his companions. Later, Yukikazu and Bulk stagger and crumple, their bodies utterly drained by relentless military service. Leela slams down an even harsher training regimen, kicking off relentless drills. She tore into the recruits, screaming them down for the miserable mess they'd made of sword practice. Leela stares at their sagging muscles and snaps that their bodies betray exactly how much they've been slacking. She punishes them by forcing the maggots to run a brutal 10-kilometer marathon. Back in his room, Yukikazu erupts into a triumphant cheer, grinning like a victor as Trebuch finally gets the long-overdue comeuppance he deserves. In his room, Yukikazu leans back against his companion Bolt and devours the book. He rips open his own personality, grappling with the chilling thought that he might be a bad person. A spark of hope for a better future flared in him as he watched Bolt go all in, laser-focused on brutal muscle training. A sharp knock pounds the door, and Yukikazu, unfazed, calls out, "It's open." Fillain bursts in, demanding to know what they're doing, and he explains Bolt's plan to bulk up. Yukikazu locks eyes on Fillain, brow knitting in baffled disbelief, and snaps, "Any other business." A bolt of realization slams into him. He remembers whispers about a petition to topple Captain Trebuch. He explodes with the truth. He sent the petition because the captain's reckless behavior pushed him over the edge. Fillain reveals the incident has driven Senior Knight Leela to unleash a sweeping investigation. She endorses the investigation as a good thing, then her voice falters and trickles into a hesitant hush. Yukikazu leans in, jaw setting and eyes sharpening, his face hardening as he feels the deeper unease pulsing beneath her words. A bolt of realization hits Fillain and he snaps, "Has Senior Knight Leela spoken to you yet?" She snaps that she, too, filed a petition, and Leela was the one who replied. Yukikazu's mind snaps into focus. He traces her worry straight back to Senior Knight Leela. He can see Fillain still carries a raw, unresolved grudge against Leela, something Trebuch's punishment never touched. She admits there's a problem, but the words to explain it die on her lips. She plants her hand on her hip, scrambling for the right words. Yukikazu senses her distress and, voice steady and inviting, beckons her to confide in him as a comrade. He admits they know nothing about each other's pasts and says that same blankness could be the key to cracking her silence. Fillain drinks in the encouragement as the truth crashes over him. He can't shoulder her burdens alone. She balled her hand into a fist, steel coiling in her chest as she braced herself to tell him everything. She turned her back and spat that she came from a respectable house. Every ounce of it revolted her. Determination blazing in her eyes, she vows to forge her own success, just an ordinary person standing on her own. Bolt zeroes in on Leela, a face from her past, and reads the scorn blazing in her eyes at the thought of her becoming a soldier. Darkness swallowed Fillain's face as her bangs slid over her eyes, a silent confirmation of Bolt's guess. Yukikazu leans in, drinking in her words and recognizing the fierce, unyielding urge driving her to fulfill her duty even as hardship gnaws at her. He locks eyes with her and snaps, "Why won't you just tell Leela how you feel?" Her jaw dropped and disbelief snapped out of her. "You actually think Leela would just sit there and listen?" A flashback rips open, exposing Leela's raw worry for someone else as Yukikazu storms in, insisting she truly cares for Fallen. He insists, voice raw, that some things only become real when you say them out loud. He flashes a confident grin and vows they'll scramble to hatch a new plan if this one falls apart. He shouts that even Bolt wants to help, and the orc roars back, bursting with eager agreement. Fillain's throat tightens as their sincere support washes over her. Her eyes snap wide in stunned surprise. Her face softens, then ironclad resolve snaps into place as she takes in their encouragement. Her face cracks into a radiant, genuine smile as every trace of doubt melts away. She spun on her heel, pouring out a rush of gratitude, and vowed she'd give it her all too. Yukikazu froze, heart pounding, desperate to untangle how his friendship with Bolt could have shaped her decision. She vows to keep grinding through push-ups, and Bolt answers with a low, approving grunt. The next morning, a formal summons thundered in, dragging Yukikazu straight into Senior Knight Leela's office. Leela, writing with a quill clenched in her hand, snaps at him to sit at her desk. Her gaze pinned him as she demanded he tell his side of the story. He drops onto a seat, forced to admit to himself that her crushing aura breeds fear, not joy. Leela flipped through his file, smirked, and announced, "He's had a seriously strange career." She zeroes in on the bizarre clearance that let him enlist and the stamped label branding him a national secret. Yukikazu's world shatters when he uncovers that the country deliberately hid the truth. He's an otherworldly warrior. He edges closer, voice low and tight with caution, asking if she's even allowed to talk about those secret details. Leela snapped the papers like a starter pistol, bracing to hurl the conversation into an entirely new direction. She leans forward, sidesteps his backstory, and snaps, "What did you hear about Fillain?" Blindsided, Yukikazu froze, his mind split between confessing everything or pretending he knew nothing. He chooses the second option, forces out an apology, and pretends he has no idea what she means. A cold bead of sweat snakes down his temple as he wills his lie to pass for the truth. Leela's calm eyes locked onto his sealed lips, her unreadable mask sparking a wildfire of panic inside Yukikazu. She calls out recruit Fillain's stubbornness, shredding his attempt to dodge and making it crystal that she sees right through him. Leela smirks and drops the bomb. She heard Fillain's story last night and already understands the whole situation. She locks eyes and demands, will you back Fillain's wishes or flat out refuse them? Leela's lips curl into a sly, knowing smile as she studies his reaction. She delivers a hard-earned lesson, simply shielding Fillain won't spark her growth. That person's advice silenced her. She won't oppose Fillain's decision, leaving Yuki Kazu baffled. Leela orders them to keep working side by side, pushing each other and forging themselves into sharper recruits. Her expression snaps into steel, her eye flashing like ice as she hurls a chilling threat at him. Terror rips through Yukikazu as his thoughts sprint. He wonders, could she really be Fillain's father? He stammers, scrambling to deflect, name-dropping Bolt the Orc and their good terms as a last-ditch shield. Raw loyalty yanks him to his feet, and he explodes into a fierce defense of Bolt's honor. Silence hits him like a slap. He instantly knows he blew it, frozen and painfully awkward in the hushed office. He scrambles out a hasty apology for his rudeness, cheeks burning and voice trembling with embarrassment. Leela flashes a smile, accepts his apology, and vows they won't move forward with even a whisper of evil in their hearts. She slams the conversation shut and dismisses him with a curt flick of her hand. He snaps a razor-sharp salute. He turns to leave as Leela's voice shatters the air, calling his name one last time. She turned her back to him and with icy formality thrust Fillain's care squarely onto his shoulders. Yukikazu pushed through the building's doors and let out a long, heavy sigh as the weight of his new responsibility sank into his bones. Later in the bustling town square, Fillain burst into a grin and called out, "Did I buy everything I need?" He confirms he has, and she beams, urging, "Let's scour the city together." Yukikazu declares it's just a simple supply run, and the whole day melts into a welcome break. As they stride, his voice cuts the air. "Should I buy armor before my first dungeon run?" He whooped at the thought of treasure hunting, practically vibrating with excitement, while Fillain watched with a keen, curious smile. Bolt's demands they prep emergency medicine, and Yukikazu grins, pointing out Bolt's already whipped some up yesterday. His mind races as he measures Bolt's medicine's startling effectiveness against the remedy the Wolfman once used. His eyes cut to a tavern and lock on their disgraced captain, Trebuch. Electric tension pulses through the room as they decide to dig into what their former superiors were up to. Crouched behind barrels, the trio leaned in, whispering that Trebuch's meeting was unmistakably suspicious. They overhear Trebuch lean in to a hooded figure and hiss that something keeps materializing there. Greed carved a smirk across Trebuch's face as he pictured himself learning magic with that. Bolt nearly blows their cover, yelping sharply as they clip a barrel. Trebuch's eyes snap across the room, every furtive twitch slamming their suspicion home. He's hiding something. Fillain leans in, voice strained, "Do we report him?" And Yukikazu shrugs, eyes hard, there isn't enough solid proof. They go silent, muscles coiled and senses razor-tuned, eyes hunting the shadows for any strange movement. Surveillance wrapped, Fillain snaps, "There's a place I want to go." Their conversation dies mid-sentence as a massive, scaly dragon rips the sky with a thunderous roar. A hulking, clockwork soldier wreathed in crackling magic thunders into view, turning the whole scene into a roaring spectacle. The magic soldier thundered past a towering monument to the world's advanced technology. Yukikazu and Phil and Wachna roared, declaring these were real, fantastical marvels. Fillain's face ignites into a luminous blaze of pure, unadulterated joy the moment he sees it. Senior Knight Leela watches them, fascinated that Fillain brightens at the smallest spark. Yukikazu forces himself to admit to himself he really knows nothing about Fillain and Bolt. A decision snaps into place. He bolts back, fresh resolve roaring through his veins. Leela snaps, finished sightseeing. Her tone slams the door on any thought the break is still on. The trio stands together, and Yukikazu swears he'll push himself to the limit to truly understand his companions. Dawn explodes on the day of the great expedition as a company of soldiers marches into the shadowed forest. Leela flips the rare oil timer of return between her fingers, jaw tight, demanding to know why they'd provide something this crucial. The shot rockets into a close-up of the escape item, its intricate hourglass-shaped design coiled tight with raw power. Senior Knight Leela strides forward, voice like steel, "I'll scout the road ahead and make sure it's safe." She plants herself before the young recruit Yukikazu, her face a mask of cold, unblinking determination. In a private moment, she issues a chilling warning that something strange is unfolding around Trebuch. Yukikazu's eyes went wide, and she let out a sharp, audible gasp as her unsettling, cryptic words landed like a punch. She spat the warning, spun on her heel, and strode away. His companion, Fillain, ripped the silence with a shout, snapping him to attention. She flashes a bright grin, thrusts a small device into his hands and declares, "It's for you." The ornate watch gleams with filigree, mapping the dungeon's twisting corridors and tracking every soldier's movement. A shout rips the air. Here comes the shipment they're meant to escort. Up close, a jet-black, coffin-shaped container lay bound tight in layers of fluttering paper talismans. A massive pitch-black, gem-like orb glares from the container's surface, embedded like a dark, unblinking eye. Yukikazu's gaze drills into the object's uncanny arcane mechanisms and coffin-like shell. Their captain Travis slams a fist on the locked container and roars that it's a brand new special weapon. The group steeled themselves at the threshold of a long, pitch-black corridor yawning into the dungeon. A lone torch fights the darkness on the stone brick wall, sputtering a thin, wavering light. They heaved the heavy cart through a claustrophobic hallway that felt like it was stretching on forever, the walls closing in around them. Yukikazu's mind snaps. He remembers the mission, plunged down to the 10th underground level. The camera zeroes in on the worn, cracked stone steps that plunge deeper into the darkness. A ragged gasp rips from him as he stares at the impossible sight before him. He stumbled out of the dark tunnel into a blinding, sunlit meadow, his mind reeling. Bolt, their small companion, calmly unraveled the dungeon's distorted spacetime. I snapped my head back. The corridor had become the cavernous guts of an Egyptian pyramid. Calm flooded the scenery, then Travis barked, yanking everyone into a lightning-fast right turn. A soldier slams the map, roaring at points left. Trebuch cuts him off and overrules him. Trebuch plants himself before the immovable wall and proclaims with iron confidence, "It's here." He slams his palm onto the stone, and a hidden mechanism groans to life. A deafening rumble rocked the wall as a hidden panel ground aside, and a dark passage yawned open. Trebuch flaunts his trap-detecting prowess with a cocky grin and insists they go inside. The small squad bolts after their captain, plunging into the newly discovered secret room. His eyes flare with manic glee the instant he spots what he'd been hunting. He erupted into triumphant laughter the instant his eyes locked onto the wooden treasure chest. A young recruit charges forward, eyes blazing, demanding an explanation for this detour. Travis sneers, dismissing it as nothing more than a shortstop to snag the item. The recruit snarls, insisting they must finish their mission first in the fog-choked no-man's land. Terror rips from the young man's throat as a brutal shove hurls him aside. Travis bellows that he's in charge and will kill anyone who dares defy him. A cold bolt of certainty rips through Yukikazu. Trebuch knew the chest was here the whole time. Inside, several clam-shaped shells clutch seeds that blaze with raw, magical light. A flashback rips us to the moment Trebuch snatched that intel at a clandestine meeting. Fillain leans in, voice sharp, and warns that magic seeds are shockingly rare, precious items you need to learn magic. Trebuch cackles, certain that magic will make him fearless against that woman. A sharp metallic click snapped the chest's lock open. He rips the lid open and snatches the magic seat like a trophy, roaring his victory. A colossal, blinding magic circle detonated from his chest, a lightning-hot jolt ripping through him. A soldier screams, panic ripping through his voice as he barks for everyone to get out, now. Panic rips through Yukikazu as the crushing, impossible weight of their new reality slams into them. A dark, scratchy thought bubble crackles with satisfaction, reveling in the fact that things are improving. His heart hammers as he recognizes a bone-chilling voice from his past cutting through the silence. A sinister voice burst into a low, gleeful chuckle. Finally, things were getting interesting. A deafening crack rips the air, yanking the scene into a sudden, brutal shift. The group jolts awake in an unfamiliar place, and Fillain doubles over, clutching her head in searing pain. Yukikazu blinks, clawing the fog from his mind and snapping his gaze over his surroundings. He jolts upright in a field of swaying tall grass, eyes wild as he scrambles to piece together what just happened. Trebuch's memory snaps to the magic circle that detonated from the treasure chest. The squad clumps together, heads swiveling, confusion crackling through them as they realize they have no idea which floor they're on. Panic explodes in the soldier as he whirls to his captain, and voice cracking begs, "What do we do?" Yukikazu steps in, voice steady, urging them to use the watch to pinpoint their location. Trebuch shot back, "I was about to do that myself." The watch face flashes 25, an impossibly deep floor level. Yukikazu howled in disbelief. He'd been on floor 9 just moments before. A grim memory claws at him. Hit floor 20 and the monsters level up into savage, bone-shattering power. A monstrous roar shreds the air, slamming into Yuki, Kazoo, and Fillain and leaving them wide-eyed and stunned. The earth shudders with each thunderous stomp as a hulking beast barrels closer. A nightmarish, multi-headed Orthra beast erupts into view, unleashing a savage, ear-splitting roar at them. The small party scattered, terror burning through their veins as they sprinted away from the colossal monster, thundering behind them. Yukikazu lunges, grabs a terrified Trebuch by the shoulders and shakes him, yelling until Trebuch's eyes snap back to him. He demands, voice raw, "Travis, do you still have the escape item Leela gave you?" Panic clawing at him, Travis tore through the area and snatched the crucial device from the ground. Panic shatters and a cocky grin explodes across his face as he hoists the item like a trophy. He bellowed, rallying the group and driving them to sprint now so they could escape. The recruits lurch, balance shattered, as Trebuch slams the brakes on their retreat. A cruel sneer curled his lips as he slammed blame onto them and demanded they shoulder the responsibility. Yukikazu and Fillain freeze, mouths agape, staring back in stunned, helpless bafflement. The escape item's whirlwind of light erupted, dragging Travis and his subordinate into its blazing embrace. The brilliant pillar of light snuffed out, casting the three recruits into cold, echoing isolation. Yukikazu, Fillain, and Bolt froze, betrayal ripping through them like a sudden, brutal strike. Yukikazu planted their feet in the empty field, muttering in stunned disbelief at their abandonment. Two shadowy Orthros towered over them, low growls rumbling like thunder as their teeth flashed in the gloom. A titanic tail crashes down, hurling them through the air and shattering their cart into splinters. They slammed to the ground, staring down the snarling, multi-headed nightmare roaring right before them. Yukikazu, voice raw with fear, pleads with Bolt, "Can your hone muscles crush that monster?" Fillain's jaw tightens. It's a boss so monstrous even dragoons challenge it, and he declares the whole thing impossible. Yukikazu makes a split-second choice and bolts, sprinting for cover to vanish into the shadows. He stops dead, eyes locking on whatever's blocking their path ahead. A second author bursts in, pinning them between two towering, snarling beasts. Bolt hefted a massive axe, jaw clenched, squaring up to the monster as adrenaline surged through him. He clutched the weapon, every muscle coiling like a loaded spring as he readied a devastating strike. He heaves the axe and crashes it down with every ounce of strength, aiming dead-on for the creature's skull. The weapon explodes into shards on impact, scattering like glass as the beast stands utterly unharmed. Horror tore through Yukikazu as he watched Bolt's titanic strength slam into the enemy and bounce off, utterly useless. The three companions pressed together, trapped in the corner as Orthros's guttural growls closed in. Despair tightens its grip, and a cold, disembodied voice slices the silence and sneers, "Oh." Yukikazu freezes, he knows that voice, and it tosses him a cryptic clue about how to survive. Cornered with no choice left, he slams into action and unleashes the devastating L charge. He steels himself. Hesitation is a luxury he can't afford right now. He sucked in a jagged breath, jaw clenching as he readied himself for the showdown. The monstrous Orthros hurtled forward, unleashing a deafening, savage roar. Lightning in his legs, he snatches his friends into his arms and bolts. The Wehrmacht is everything to you. He knows they've slipped past the first onslaught, but peril still stalks them. Held aloft, Fillain clenches every muscle, fear roaring. If he moves even the slightest bit faster, who knows what will happen? Pinned between two monstrous Orthrus beasts, Yukikazu's mind scrambles, hunting any move to escape. A shadowy voice whispers a clue, yanking his gaze to a trump card lying within arm's reach. His gaze snapped to the coffin-shaped cargo, its ominous form sealed by pulsing, rune-glowing talismans. The shot slams into a close-up of the container's lid. Huge black gems sink into its surface, cold and gleaming. Yukikazu's eyes snap to the object as understanding hits him like a punch. He recognizes that ominous thing. He still hears his captain bellowing that it was a newly launched, devastating special weapon. A growling Orthrus slunk closer, squeezing the cornered, terrified trio into a shrinking circle. Knowing hesitation will cost him, he catapults himself at the weapon. His gloved hand shot out, fingertip hovering a breath away from the mysterious gem, frozen on the cusp of touch. The instant his fingertips touch the surface, a brilliant flash of light detonates. The magical paper seals binding the container splinter and crumble into dust. A splintering crack ripped through the air as the magical bindings exploded into shards, due to suede. Yukikazu's eyes flash with iron resolve as he watches the container rip wide open. He drops to his knees before the splintered husk of the coffin-shaped weapon. Inside, he stumbles upon nothing but a lone, plain wooden stick lying in the grass. He He snatches it up, incredulous. How could this ordinary thing possibly help them? The stick flared to life, blasting holographic panels across his vision and wrenching a startled gasp from him. The complex system snaps awake, fires an authentication scan, and brands him, not the last divine beast. He rips a gasp of pain as a strange, overpowering surge tears through his body. He feels it like a jolt. The stick has just siphoned an invisible shard straight from his heart. He looks down, the simple stick clutched in his hand, twists and transforms right before his eyes. The object convulsed, folded in on itself, and snapped into an ornate sword hilt. A red targeting reticle snaps into his vision and locks onto an Orthus. The system locks onto the monster, tears through its data, and calculates the precise power needed to crush it. The weapon yanks his power awake, conjuring a storm of ethereal daggers into the air. Horror lances through him as his mouth betrays him, chanting an incantation. He bellows the final word, daggers, and a whirling storm of freshly summoned blades erupts around him. A blistering deluge of daggers pummels the two colossal, multi-headed beasts. The author's creations convulsed, tumbling backward and snarling in raw pain as a devastating magical blast ripped through them. Yukikazu erupted into a blur and launched himself over the reptile's lashing tail. Twin blades flashing, he tore through the monstrous horde, each strike a savage burst of fury. His relentless assault tears through the creatures, cutting them down in a savage flurry of dark energy. Fillain and Bolt froze, mouths agape as the display struck them dumb. From a safe distance, they stood agape as he unleashed a dazzling, utterly unexpected power. With the battle won, Yukikazu suddenly crumples to his knees, agony shredding through him. He clutches his chest, a scream ripping free as jagged pain erupts from his heart and tattoo. Fillain screams his name, panic tearing from his throat as he teeters on the brink of collapse. A shadowed whisper cuts the silence and drops a brutal truth: power always comes at a terrible cost. A jolt rips through him. It's the voice that launched his wild journey into this other world. He fights the mental invasion, ripping through the pressure and bellowing inside, "Who are you?" Reality slammed into him, and he jerked his head up to see Fillain bent over him, worry carved deep into his face. The sudden closeness jolted him. He recoiled, scrambled back, and stammered a flustered apology. Heat flooded his face, eyes snapping wide in surprise, a faint blush betraying a twinge of embarrassment. His gaze snaps to Fillain and Bolt, both sprawled on the ground, dazed. He reels from the recent battle, grappling to make sense of it as the voice within his tattoo's power roars through him. A memory explodes into his mind, and dread claws through him as he grasps what must have happened to his friends. A memory slams him. He'd read about experience point drunkenness, the brutal side effect of leveling up too fast. He still hears the king's booming declaration: otherworldly warriors like him grow stronger with uncanny ease. He shoves the mystery aside and vows to hunt down a safe hideout for them. Their cart lay smashed to splinters, its wood and cargo strewn through the tall grass just a few paces away. Tall blades of grass rippled like a spectral sea, coaxed by the dungeon's strange, unnatural breeze. Moments later, Fillain's eyelids flutter and snap open as she claws her way back to consciousness. She bolts upright and finds Yukikazu standing over her, worry etched across his face. He reveals he'd uncovered a cave swallowed by the grass, a secret refuge where they can finally rest. Outside, Bolt tore into the Orthros' carcasses, ripping them apart to scavenge every useful component. He bursts back brandishing a massive paw, and Yukikazu erupts, praising his jaw-dropping craftsmanship. Healed and back on his feet, Fillain leaned in and demanded to know how he had crushed those hulking monsters. She thrusts a finger at the once mysterious weapon as it collapses back into a plain wooden stick. She strains and heaves, muscles screaming, then gasps, "This thing is way heavier than it looks." Yukikazu flashes a crooked grin, dodges her question, and shoots back that it's a secret skill from his clan. He snaps that it's a charge-type ability, a ruthless erosion power that literally eats away at whatever it hits. Fillain leaned in, eyes razor-sharp, studying the object and suspecting it might be the country's new weapon. Yukikazu demanded, voice crackling with fury, why entrust a weapon this devastating to low-ranking recruits? Bolton hammers that national law crowns survival above all, wielding that claim as a shield to justify their actions. Yukikazu's jaw tightens as they finally admit the more urgent problem is the dire mess they're trapped in right now. They huddled into a tight, tense circle, voices snapping as they plotted their next move. He tells Phil, and she steels herself for the grim reality of their predicament. He confirms with a grim whisper, they've reached floor 25, a savage tier swarming with colossal, deadly monsters. He warns, voice tight, that buried this deep in the dungeon, every move could be your last. Jaw clenched and eyes hard as iron, he spelled out the three choices they had. First, he snapped that they could use an accessory to blast out a rescue signal. Alarm tightened his chest. Senior Knight Leela would buy the captain's report and toss their story aside. He warns that reaching floor 25 is a brutal, near-impossible climb. Bolt snarls that a rescue mission would be a suicide run for the knights. Yukikazu throws a sharp sidelong glance, bracing to unleash his final knockout point. He realizes that standing idle would cast them as helpless storybook princesses. Fillain's eyes sparked like flint, conviction blazing as she barked, "I don't like that idea." Yukikazu's jaw drops as she suddenly unleashes a fierce, unyielding will. He watches in awe as the usually gentle girl suddenly steels herself into fierce, unbreakable resolve. He then slams down their second option, a far deadlier gamble. They could wield his devastating weapon and tear a path out of the dungeon. Fillain's eyes ignite at the memory of the weapon's awe-inspiring, devastating power. Yukikazu's memory snapped. Those warning voices screamed about the crushing price of unleashing that strength. He confesses that every time he moves, his body screams in agony, so he forces himself to stay motionless. He shoots 3 fingers into the air and roars that their third plan is the most realistic choice. They slip through shadows, evading monsters and scavenging every scrap of supplies that might buy them a way out. He brandishes an ornate, hourglass-shaped relic, the escape device they'd been counting on. He slams the news out. The supplied oil timer was found here, and hope rockets through them. Bolt brandishes the gleaming weapons and armor he forged with masterful hands. With their plan finally locked, Yukikazu roars a fierce, determined shout. The trio locked hands and swore they'd claw their way out of the perilous dungeon together. Cloaked, they plunge into a sea of towering grass, fighting for every step in a grueling, endless march. Bull snaps his nose skyward and sniffs the air in sharp bursts, poised to pounce at the first hint of danger. The 3 companions slip through the dense, swaying reeds, every step measured and silent. Fillain's voice cracks as she warns about the chilling voices drifting in from the distance. Yukikazu staggers, weariness etched into every line of his face as he squints at the horizon, trying to figure how long they've been walking. He replays every brutal crisis that has tested him since he arrived in this world. He takes in his companions and realizes they've become a full party, just like in a game. He sizes up their roles and claims the mantle of the otherworldly main attacker. His mind snaps to Bulkress, the steadfast orc partner, fiercely loyal yet cruelly mistreated. Yukikazu counts on his orc companion Boltcrest as an unshakable, brutally powerful ally. They brand him a barbarian, punishing him for the scars of past conflicts. A tiny tag clipped to his ear, meant to brand him an ally, was worthless when it counted. His other companion, Phil and Roylas, bristles with knowledge and dazzles with the unmistakable beauty of a native of this world. She wields razor-sharp analytical instincts and hunts down hidden items like a bloodhound. She hails from a respected, well-off house. Yukikazu barely knew them, yet a fierce hunger to grow closer seized him. As the trio pushed onward, a strange contentment swelled in him. They actually felt like a real party. The peaceful moment splinters as Boltcrest snaps a warning grunt, instincts screaming that danger is imminent. They dove into the towering grass, silence snapping into a razor edge of tension. Yukikazu hisses into the dark, "Are the monsters coming?" as they press into the shadows, waiting. A grotesque, winged eyeball with a cavernous, tooth-studded maw lunges into view right before them. A writhing swarm of brown, winged eyeballs rockets past their hiding spot. Fillain snaps that these monsters prowl the dungeon's 12th floor. She rips the veil off and exposes their dangerous hypnosis attacks in highly poisonous flesh. Yukikazu's eyes blaze. These puny monsters are perfect fodder to farm XP and rocket him up the levels. He locks onto a lone eyeball breaking from the group and instantly plots an ambush. Fillain falters while Yukikazu boldly proclaims unshakable faith in Bolt's higher level. He urges them to spring the coordinated ambush they drilled in training. Fillain leans in, grinning at their effortless camaraderie, while Yukikazu coils, poised to launch his companion. He crouches low, coiling like a spring, and Bolt rockets onto his back, primed to unleash their attack. Yukikazu plants his feet, coils, and launches the bull like a missile straight at the target. He roars out the name of their special move, Friend's Shot. Bolt rockets toward the monster, his clawed gauntlet a coiled fist poised to tear it apart. The strike lands with cataclysmic force, annihilating the creature in a single, devastating blow. Yukikazu explodes into a triumphant cheer as Fillain stands stunned, floored by how perfectly they moved as one. Boat watched, silent triumph, curling his lips after they executed flawlessly. Frantic rustling erupts from the grass nearby, yanking their celebration into a stunned hush. A collective jolt hits them, and they whip around at the chilling sound of the threat closing in. The grass rips apart as a colossal, lightning-fast blur hurtles into view. A massive, feathered panther bursts into view, its muscled frame coiled with raw power. Identified as a Viridian Emperor Panther, the beast rockets past them in a blinding blur. Yukikazu froze, breath snatched away, as its lightning speed and lethal threat slammed into him. Fillain's jaw dropped. It's even faster than a turquoise-speed panther. Yukikazu snapped the monster's name like a verdict, leaving his companions staring, stunned. Fillain and Bolt both choked on shocked cries, disbelief shredding their voices at his impossible knowledge. He snaps, aren't monster names supposed to hover above their heads where everyone can see them? Fire off questions about whether he has an appraisal skill. He shakes his head and flat out says he doesn't. Silence slammed down between them, thick with suspicion, as Fillain pinned him with an unblinking stare. Her eyes narrow, the way he recalls his other mysterious powers feels completely wrong. Yukikazu's power blares out of place in this world, and he realizes it's abnormal. He suspects it springs from his otherworldly origins. For now, he charges forward and claims the job of identifying every monster the party meets. He aches to pry open deeper details, the value of appraisal skills hitting him like a bolt of lightning. Fillain steels herself and silently vows to give everything she has, even as fresh mysteries coil around her friend. They forge ahead, unearthing strange trinkets and handy supplies scattered along the path. They fling open the wooden barrel, and a glittering heap of their hard-earned loot spills into view. They rifled through their findings, grins spreading as a handy hook glinted among a scatter of other loot. Yukikazu's eyes snapped to a single object tucked deep in the collection. He snatched the ornate rod, grinning as he declared it the perfect weapon for filing. She groans under its crushing weight, suspecting her level still isn't high enough to wield it. Yukikazu stares in disbelief as he sees nearly every item in this world gated by level requirements. Bolt fires off an excited grunt that snaps him to attention. He jabbed a finger at a dazzling treasure chest nestled in the nearby grass. He slid the end bolt into place, hunched over the chest, and probed every inch with his heart hammering, certain it could be trapped. Yukikazu hatches a daring plan. He'll fling the hook, snag the latch, and yank it open from a safe distance. He's mid-sentence when a sudden ripple in the grass erupts, snapping his head up. A scaly reptilian form half emerges, coiled tight right beside the chest. A spiky slate-gray electric snake erupts from the shadows, crackling with menace as it reveals itself to the party. Yukikazu's eyes snap to the creature. Instantly, he declares it a deadly 15th-floor monster. He bellows to his companions that its poison can lock your limbs solid, and it can unleash brutal electric shocks. He rips up the plan on the fly, smashes the chest, and pounces on the snake in one explosive move. With a cocky grin, he boasted about his aim, tightened his stance, and readied himself to unleash the difficult shot. He locks eyes with Bolt and snaps, "I'm ready, execute the maneuver." They hurl the hook and chain together, snapping an intricate mechanical trap to life. The chain snaps around the chest and barrels, wrapping the hissing snake in tight coils. The chain slams down, pinning the snake beneath and trapping it tight against the chest. Now the chest sits wrapped tight, the snake pinned and unable to move freely. From a safe distance, the party watches their daring gambit explode into spectacular success. Spotting the snake still twitching, Fillain lunged forward to finish it off. Yukikazu screamed, voice raw, "The trap isn't over yet." The chest lid slams open, launching a storm of iron spikes as he hurls himself over Fillain to shield him. He lunges, yanking her behind him as his cloak devours the incoming projectiles, then hisses, "That was way too close." A lone bead of blood slips free from a tiny cut on Fillain's cheek. Yukikazu snaps his head over his shoulder, concern carved across his face as he watches her. Fillain gasps as blood wells from his side, then shrugs it off, relief crashing through him that she's safe. He whips his gaze back to the treasure and snaps at Bolt, "Tell me, what's its condition?" Dread surges through him. The snake's electrified trap might have fried the contents to pieces. He peeks into the container. His eyes snap wide the instant a glittering prize catches his gaze. He whipped out an ornate, locket-like pendant, its delicate chain glinting in the light. Fillain's breath hitched as he instantly recognized the item for what it was, a rare, powerful magic seed. Yukikazu freezes, clutching the precious artifact as the staggering discovery rips through his mind. A jolt runs through him. He remembers this is the legendary relic that can grant someone the power to wield magic. Its value slams into him like a tidal wave. Panic spikes as he scrambles, unsure what they should do with it. Fillain's calm steadies him as he reveals the truth. Mock versions, though rare, are being actively researched. She drops a bombshell. The laws of magic have been rewritten, and now most people can't learn it. Yukikazu's breath catches. This world's rules aren't simple. They're a tangled, merciless web far beyond anything he'd assumed. He hoists the pulsing magic seed high and throws the question to his companions. What's our next move? He thrusts the first chance to learn magic into the hands of his loyal companion Bolt. Fillain urges Yukikazu to wield it. He's the one who carries them through every fight. He rails against hoarding it, insisting they should funnel that power into fortifying one party member. He'll admit he's hooked on magic, but he throws himself into keeping the party alive. He steels himself and settles on one decision. Fillain should use the seed. He realizes she's the team's brain, arming them with crucial knowledge and razor-sharp analysis. Yukikazu leans forward, hope blazing in his eyes as he waits for her response. Fillain's gaze hardened to steel, her voice cold and steady as she declared she'd refuse his offer. Her sudden refusal slammed into Yukikazu and Bolt, freezing them in stunned silence. Fillain drops her gaze, feeling the heavy truth of how her choice could look to her friends. She owns up to being stubborn and selfish, then plants her feet and refuses to budge from her choice. She's haunted by the certainty that people are always swooping in to bail her out. She seethes, aching that she can't fight like Bolt or unleash Yukikazu's mysterious powers. She enlisted to remake herself into a soldier, and now she stares at the wreckage of that plan, convinced she has failed. Sorrow carved into Fillain's face as she tore her gaze from her companions. Yukikazu snaps that his offer isn't pity. He's betting on her and expects her to rise to the challenge. Disbelief detonated inside him. How could he stake that much faith on someone like her? He lays out the party's roles and makes it clear they're counting on her to be the team's magical backup. Bolt slams a fist and grins, declaring her vast knowledge makes her the clear choice to learn magic. Hesitation grips Fillain. She concedes their logic but doubts her own strength. Yukikazu steps forward and confesses the old sting of inadequacy he once carried, his voice warm with empathy as he tells her he knows exactly how she feels. He snaps that the method doesn't matter, only what she chooses to do from this moment on counts. Yukikazu declares with steady conviction, "We're comrades, we'll support each other." He thrusts the glowing seed toward her, his grin fierce and urging her to take it. Fillain locked eyes with him, her face melting into softness as a shy pink bloom spread across her cheeks. Silence slammed into her as she fixed her gaze on the object in his hand and his words, turning every phrase over in her mind. Her glove-clad hand darts out, and at last closes around the ornate, spherical magic seed. Clutching the artifact to her chest, she declares she understands and shoulders the trust he's placed in her. She gave a hard nod, resolve sparking in her eyes, and declared she would use the powerful seed. The magic seed's outer shell splits and dissolves, unleashing a roaring flood of power. She presses the disintegrating orb to her brow and drinks its last sparks of magic into herself. Her eyes blaze with a raw surge of power, her face pulled taut in fierce, unblinking concentration. As the process snaps shut, she proclaims it's finished, and Bolt erupts into a stunned exclamation. She reveals that a jolt from her past fused into her, reshaping her magic into pure electric power. Yukikazu leans in, every nerve taut, as she steels herself to unveil more of her newfound powers. She settles her hand gently on his cheek, and the unexpected contact jolts him. His eyes snap wide in stunned surprise. He jerks back, face aflame, utterly disarmed by their sudden closeness and the soft, unexpected brush of her hand. She flashes a warm smile and declares she can mend his injuries with a simple recovery spell. Yukikazu's face flushed as he blurts a shaky thanks and insists they plunge back into the dungeon together. A nearby patch of the dungeon's grassy floor stretches out beneath a brooding, cloud-choked sky. A massive wolf-like beast tears out of the grass, fangs gleaming, and lunges straight at them. Yukikazu's jaw clenched. A Viridian Emperor Panther had tracked them down, leaving him no choice but to fight. The group stands over the monster's fallen carcass as Fillain bellows Yukikazu's name. Fillain swallowed and agreed. Unleashing his weapon was the only thing that kept them from being wiped out. Yukikazu fears that leaning on his power every time will become a deadly crutch. A disembodied voice snarled, scolding him for his reliance and daring him to draw courage from within. Crushed by relentless danger, Yukikazu crumples to the ground and exhales a long, heavy sigh. Fillain howled, lamenting that despite prying open chest after chest, the one item that could buy their escape kept slipping through their fingers. Yukikazu snaps, screaming that he just wants to grab the item and go home. He whispers a desperate plea for a terminal to run diagnostics on his erosion rate that's skyrocketing into the danger zone. Bolt erupts into excited yelps, snapping everyone's heads toward him. Yukikazu peered through the grass and snapped, "Bolt, did you find another treasure chest?" Far off, a hulking, crumbling multi-story building loomed, its shattered silhouette cutting into the ink-black sky. Yukikazu froze, breath snatched, a single frantic question ripping from him. What is that strange structure? The trio froze beneath the looming building, Bolt snapping it might be either crumbling ruins or a secret fortress. Fillain urged them to investigate, praying they'd finally find a safe place to rest inside. Yukikazu agrees, his voice charged with hope that a terminal lies within. They stop dead as a weathered, mysterious building rears up before them, a grotesque, unnatural blot in the heart of the dungeon. Picture dungeons ripping chunks of civilization from the surface and folding streets, buildings, and relics into their dark veins. The theory nails why the building stands there. Then, without warning, Fillain's roars for Yukikazu to look down. Half buried in the dirt, a flat, black rectangle resembling a screen juts out. Yukikazu's eyes snap to the device and he snarls, "That's a terminal, it's gone dark, completely dead and unresponsive." Fillain recoils at the thought of using it, convinced they can't wield it, and Yukikazu, an aspiring mechanic, flat-out doubts they can either. She insists it's completely drained and will spring to life once fed magic stones. Her idea clicks, terminal words snap to life, erupting into a pulsating field of light. Fillain reveals the terminal weaves a camouflage barrier, finally letting them rest safely. Yukikazu and Bolt gaped as a glowing barrier burst to life around them, its pulsing light wrapping them in a protective shield. Yukikazu bursts into heartfelt thanks, lavishing praise on Fillain for her clever solution. Grinning wide, Fillain sparks the idea to check their status, and Bolt and Yukikazu leap at it, shouting yes. A small, triumphant laugh slips from her lips, pride surging, thrilled to have been so useful to her friends. Yukikazu roars, vowing he'll be the first to check his status. He slams his finger onto the terminal screen, and the status display bursts to life. A holographic window bursts into view, blazing his name, his level, and a sprawling list of skills across the air. He reels in horror, shouting that he's jumped 41 levels and that his erosion rate has skyrocketed. He growled that his erosion rate had been a measly 4% before, slamming the blame on his weapon and the L charge. They lock in colossal level gains, bold rockets to 55 and filling soars to 47. Fillain flinched as his level exploded upward, dread clawing at him. What if this was XP poisoning? Yukikazu growled, even with their sky-high levels, this terminal spits out almost no compatible skills. He tears into how skill prerequisites work, hoisting his own stamina skill into the spotlight as a live example. He remembers the savage training he survived, the crucible that forged that exact skill. Fillain plunges into recovery magic training, determined to wring every ounce of power from her new abilities. Yukikazu offers a silent salute to her choice, recognizing the rock-solid reliability and razor-sharp knowledge she's grown into. Bolt dropped into push-ups and barked at both of them to master the secret, all-out endurance skill. This skill rips open new possibilities, turning your tools into insanely versatile upgrades that never clash with your stamina skills. The moment Yukikazu snatches it, he staggers, his body going feather-light, like gravity just loosened its grip. He then challenged Bolt to master the art of hunting down enemies. Bolt pumps his fist and booms that every last preparation for the new skill is complete. The summary bursts with Yukikazu's new skills. He tears apart monsters' secrets with razor-sharp analysis and bends them to his will through taming. Fillain and Bolts unleash dazzling new skills, proving the party just got a massive power-up. Later, the exhausted Fillain unleashes a bone-deep yawn, begging for rest. She declares they'll take turns, standing watch in shifts before they press on. A tiny, radiant creature lets out a soft chirp, standing guard at Yukikazu's side. Yukikazu perches beside a crackling, enchanted campfire, eyes razor-sharp, as he takes the first watch beneath a vault of glittering stars. He watches the sleeping villain, breath caught, her guts and iron resilience outshine the noble blood she was born with. Phillies cries his name in her sleep, and the sound rips him out of his thoughts. He leans in, voice urgent. What's wrong? We've still got a long time before the shift change. Worry knots his brow and pins him to the spot, every nerve taut as he waits for her to speak. Still lying there, she whispers to him, "Can I talk to you for a moment?" A single panel cut snaps the hush and flips the quiet conversation into a new rhythm. She snaps, "Remember, I'm from one of the most prominent, affluent families." She vows to enlist in the military and train to be a mechanic for dragons. She vows to seize that dream herself, carving it into reality with her strength and unrelenting effort. Yukikazu sneers at her stubbornness, insisting the road she picked is nothing but a long detour. Her eyes slide to the distance as she steels herself to lay bare the reasons behind every choice. She confesses her parents disapproved. They'd been grooming her to be a bargaining chip in a political marriage. A truth slams into Yukikazu. Her situation could spark a full-scale political crisis. She swears she has no regrets. She prizes the freedom of the outside world. His fist tightened into a white-knuckled ball as her voice trailed off, a tremor of fear threading through her last words. She confesses that even after making her choice, a cold terror gnaws at her at the thought she might never see her loved ones again. Yukikazu leans in, every fiber tuned to her voice, empathy softening his face as her fears spill out. He rakes his hand through his hair as her confession hits him like a light weight. She reels at their miraculous survival and confesses she's just an ordinary, terrified girl. A fierce resolve ignites in Yukikazu. He'll learn her heart and be the steady anchor she can rely on. Reluctant to pry, he steels himself and blurts out the one crucial thing he has to say. Perched on watch, Yukikazu reaches across the shadows to the despondent villain and whispers that she'll be all right. Sprawled in the grass, she stared up at him, her brow knitting as his casual reassurance only deepened her confusion. He smirks, brandishes their trump-card weapon, and declares it's the unstoppable armament that's crushed every monster they've faced. Yukikazu admits he once summoned it only in dire crises, but now its weight barely phases him. He flashes a radiant grin and vows everything will be fine, they'll all come back alive together. Doubt evaporates as a trembling smile lights her face, and through choked sobs she vows her absolute faith in him. Her earnest trust ignites a flush across Yukikazu's face. He averts his eyes, cheeks flaming with sheepish embarrassment. Fillain bursts out, insisting she believes in their rock-solid companion, Bolt. That shared, vulnerable beat hits. Suddenly they're both blushing and fumbling for words, a little flustered. Peace finally floods her. She whispers good night to him and slips into sleep. The next day, safe behind the terminal's barrier, Yukikazu leaned forward and fired the question, what would their next move be? He teeters on waiting for rescue, and Fillain snaps that rescue is a gamble and they'll need magic stones. She realizes they're condemned to non-stop battles against weak monsters just to keep the barrier standing. Yukikazu hurls out a bold alternative, storm the strange building and hunt down an escape item. The trio squares off before the crumbling, multi-story ruin, hearts pounding as they prepare to pry its secrets loose. Yukikazu's thunderous kick rips a gaping hole through the building's concrete wall. He barrels through the rubble, carving an impromptu entrance for the group. He and Fillain inched forward, pressing their faces to the jagged hole he'd carved and peering into the black beyond. They gaped as the interior gleamed modern and spotless, a jaw-dropping contrast to the dust-coated exterior. Yukikazu snapped to Fillain and barked, "What's your plan to scout this facility?" She snaps that it's a fortress. They have to neutralize every active defense first. She knows those gaping holes in the walls could still be hiding monsters. They all agree, edging forward with razor-sharp caution as they scour every corner and shadow. Their exploration plunges them into a sleek, modern office, glass walls, humming lights, and rows of desks waiting like silent witnesses. Yukikazu's jaw dropped when he stumbled into an office packed with humming PCs inside the dungeon. Plunging deeper, they uncover a lab alive with humming machines, blinking consoles, and rows of bubbling chemical vials. He blurts, what kind of laboratory could this possibly be? His gaze snagged on the strange array. He jabbed at the odd script and asked Fillain, "Can you read those unfamiliar letters?" Fillain freezes, pulse spiking. This setup is unmistakable, an experiment room from the Alchemy Academy. A surge of admiration hits him. Despite her gilded upbringing, she fought tooth and nail to earn her place as a recruit. Out of nowhere, a cylindrical robot with a single, unblinking eye erupts into view. It's a cleaning machine. Yukikazu's breath catches as he realizes the autonomous machine that keeps the facility spotless is feared as a monster. Fillain blurted he'd take it for research, only to scoff and toss the idea aside. A tiny cleaning machine wheels away, whisper quiet, ghosting down the sterile hallway. Curiosity ignited, Yukikazu darted to the nearest doorway and peered inside. His eyes snapped wide, disbelief ripping through him at the impossible sight before him. The room erupted into a colossal mountain of treasure chests, every shape and size jammed together. His companions barreled in, jaws dropping at the staggering horde of treasure. Yukikazu deduces the dungeon's shifting space is hurling chests straight into that separate facility. He realized the cleaning machine had devoured them all and tossed them aside like garbage. They dive into the pile, hands clawing through the wreckage, desperate to pull out the oil timer of return. Yukikazu flings open the chest, sneezing and grumbling at the choking cloud of dust inside. He stops dead and yells for everyone to wait. He's found something crucial. Cradled in the clutter, an impossibly rare, priceless magic seed pulsed, its otherworldly glow slicing through the mess. He stood stunned as Bolt, chest puffed, paraded another pulsing magic seed he'd just unearthed. They erupt in stunned cheers, snatching two priceless treasures in one electrifying sweep. Yukikazu's grin exploded as he blurted to Bolt, "Let's use them together." Greed floods Bolt's face, his grin razor-sharp as visions of the fortune those seeds could buy explode in his mind. Yukikazu rips into him, barking that he must think more carefully about their situation. Fillain barks at them, "As recruits, any supplies you find are national property." She declares that wielding magic will forge Bolt's future, no matter how he feels. Bolt absorbs their reasoning, his mind racing as he weighs his next move. Yukikazu flashes a sly grin and dangles the promise of longer muscle training sessions like bait, luring him in. Perfect motivation hits home, and his eyes bolt wide, blazing with excitement. Yukikazu insists Bolt use it, shouting their friends, and the villain comes off utterly embarrassing. The moment Bolt used the seeds, a molten ore of magic surged over him, coating his body and pouring raw power into his veins. Fillain's grin split his face. He'd guessed right. He claimed Powerball, a raw, muscle-igniting magic tailor-made for him. Yukikazu beams. One priceless relic has flooded every one of them with magic. A fire ignited in him. He rallied the group and led the charge to find more treasure. They strike gold, a jaw-dropping cache of devastating enchanted weapons and impenetrable armor. A gloved hand lunges and seizes the gleaming new magic silver armor. Clad head to toe in gleaming armor, a counterfeit rush of power surges through Yukikazu, and he asks to take the fight outside. Bolt lets out an impossibly cute chirp, shattering Fillain's focus as a hot flush floods her cheeks. Her cheeks blazing, she cuts the conversation short and pushes everyone to get back to hunting the oil timer. They're walking when Yukikazu's foot clips a small object on the floor. He snatches it up, his fingers close around a cold plastic rectangle, one of those hotel keycards. Certain it's the facility's key, Fillain snatches it up and stashes it in his pocket. They strode down a long, sterile hallway, countless locked doors pressing in on both sides like silent sentries. Yukikazu cranes his neck into one of the newly unlocked rooms, heart racing as he wonders what's inside. Shock rips across his face as he drinks in the strange sight. They stumble into a cavernous room, choked with hulking, rotting machines and a writhing tangle of cables. Close-up rips into frame, exposing strange, eye-like nodes studding the biomechanical wiring. The aged computer monitors loomed black and dead, their screens caked in grime and dust. Yukikazu's eyes go wide as he mutters, "This equipment isn't a machine, it's alive." He presses Fillain for her take, and she snaps that it's a self-healing facility. She suspects it's surviving by hunting down nearby monsters and feeding on them. The mere thought of that facility devouring monsters is enough to freeze your blood. A jolt of memory hits her. She saw rooms sealed by barriers. Restore the power and those seals might drop, opening the way inside. Yukikazu plunges into the search for a way to restore it and confidently steps up to fill the gap. She's convinced a single electric jolt will short the locks and fling the security systems wide open. Energy crackling, Fillain hoists her staff skyward, ready to unleash a devastating spell. She rips the sky open, rains thunder down, and hurls a torrent of crackling electricity straight into the dormant machinery. A raging current rips through the colossal, wheel-like components. The dark monitor snaps to life, its screen erupting into a storm of crackling static. The whole room thrummed as dormant power surged roaring back to life. The trio huddled around the freshly awakened console, eyes locked as it roared to life. Yukikazu erupted in triumph, thrilled the system had roared back to life. Fillain leans in and snaps, the system still locked. The monitor blares a demand, only management can acknowledge it with a key. Yukikazu's memory snaps to the keycard, its shape screams perfect fit. He feeds the card into the console slot, a soft, satisfying click answers. A bright chime rings, victory is theirs, and they erupt into ecstatic cheers, clutching the lucky find. Fillain slams his hands onto the console, overrides the security protocols, and rips every barrier wide open. A thunderous roar rips through the facility as colossal locks shudder and snap open across every wing. Their eyes locked, silence exploding as the realization hit. The barriers were open. A cold knot of trepidation tightened in their chests as they crept into the newly accessible area. They burst into a grim laboratory, rows of cages hunched in the gloom and hulking, liquid-filled containment tanks looming like dark tombs. Fillain's eyes went cold as he suspected the creatures inside were either twisted lab experiments or alchemical abominations. Boltspot's treasure gleams ahead as Yukikazu snaps into action and activates his analyze skill to sweep the area. Fillain zeroes in on a rare, shimmering ampule, priceless and perfect for alchemy. Yukikazu, a dark-haired young man, snapped his head around and hummed a single, questioning note. Grinning like a madman, he hoists a massive, ornate battle-axe and slams it into the waiting trotters of his pig-like companion, Bull. Suddenly, a shadowed, unmistakably suspicious passage yawned open in the nearby brick wall. A terrified cry rips from Yukikazu as he flinches back, and a thunderous boom roars from behind him. The whole group bolts in panic as the wall itself groans and slides inward, sealing them in. With no choice left, Yukikazu hurls themselves into the dark opening, desperate for escape. The three companions barreled through the passage, scrambling and tumbling towards safety. A deafening boom rips the sky as colossal stone walls slam shut behind them. They crash into a dazed, tangled heap on the floor of the unfamiliar chamber. Slightly bruised, Yukikazu whirls his head and gapes, utterly bewildered by his new surroundings. They stumble into a cavernous chamber and freeze. Beneath the colossal, sleeping dragon they look like insects. Behold the magnificent crimson-scale beast, coiled in peaceful slumber inside a massive containment unit. Yukikazu and his female companion Fillain freeze, eyes blown wide as shock and awe slam into them. Recognition rips through him. The creature is a first-generation biodragon. The system analysis bellowed its full, menacing designation, Red RATH. The dragon's massive, slitted eye rips open, unleashing a startling jolt. The system prompt blares again, declaring the creature a first-generation biodragon. The official codename Red Dirath exploded onto the screen, blazing into Yukikazu's eyes. The chapter titled Dragoon slams across the panel above a determined Yukikazu, his arm crackling with light. Without warning, an ear-splitting alarm rips through the silence, its wail ricocheting throughout the cavernous chamber. Cold dread crawled up Yukikazu's spine as he realized the dragon's culture tank was leaking. Fillain raises the alarm, his voice slicing through the air as he jabs a frantic finger at the compromised containment unit. Thick, tar-black ichor oozes from widening cracks along the awakening dragon's head, each heavy drop plopping like a dark heartbeat. Yukikazu's face twisted in raw disbelief. They couldn't accept the nightmare closing in. A deafening roar explodes as the dragon rips its tank apart, sending glass and rubble raining everywhere. Its slitted, reptilian eye locked onto the intruders, seething with raw, feral hatred. Terror pinned Yukikazu and Fillain as the creature erupted into overwhelming, lightning-fast aggression. Panic thick in his voice, he blurts to his companion, "How strong is this new foe?" Fillain's voice drops. First-generation creatures like this are staggeringly rare. Dread seizes her as she confirms it's as powerful as the legendary Orthus. The dragon detonates a cataclysmic blast, its raw power gouging trenches into the earth. Its unleashed power ripped a massive, jagged chasm straight through the earth. Yukikazu reels, one attack laid waste to everything, and he can't believe his eyes. Brandishing a massive sword, the dragon roars and hurtles forward at blinding speed. The young warrior could only cry out as the creature lunged forward with terrifying, blinding speed. He grits his teeth and grimly accepts it. There's no choice but to unleash his powerful weapon. The targeting reticle snaps onto the barreling beast. Biodragon Red Dode Dayrath blazes across the display. His weapon hums awake, calculating the exact output needed as it reads the fierce will in him to win. Panic clawed at his throat as a system message flashed, 30 seconds to charge. He realizes his thoughts can bend the weapon, pliable but maddeningly slow. Doubt slams into him, whispering he might not survive that long. Raw power crackles across the dragon's scales, its eye glowing with pure malice. Its slitted pupil locked onto them, seething with raw, dangerous aggression. Fillain, trembling but resolute, clenches his fists and refuses to let Yukikazu face the beast alone. She and Bolt rocketed through the air, barreling straight toward the dragon's deafening roar. Bolt rockets in and coils his long tail around the dragon's leg, yanking it off balance and stealing its focus. Fillain clutches him with comic desperation, pleading, "Don't shake me like that," as his panicked flailing threatens to launch her. She screams a life-saving order at Yukikazu, "Aim for the chest core." Fillain snaps that chopping off its head will stall it, but the core is the real weak point. Smash that and it's finished. Grateful for the stolen seconds, Yukikazu's eyes snap open. Only 3 seconds remain. The dragon hoisted its mammoth sword and reared back to swat the pesky bolt out of the sky. Without warning, a blistering wave of searing heat blasted across the entire battlefield. Fillain's eyes snapped wide, terror clawing at her throat as she realized what the dragon was preparing. The beast draws a spiraling vortex of energy into its gaping maw, charging up its main attack. Bolt roared with fierce resolve and flung a massive steel shield to plant itself between the threat and his group. A concentrated torrent of pure energy rips from the dragon's mouth, screaming like a living thing. Yukikazu spits a curse, rage snapping in his throat as the once mighty shield melts away in a heartbeat. A pained howl rips from him as his weapon is violently compelled to swallow the blast. He gapes at his weapon, breath snagging as it suddenly snaps into a defensive stance. It hits him, he parried the strike, but his weapon is rebooting as its charge resets. The dragon rips a wrenching, furious bellow from its chest, pain and wrath blazing at the interference. His companions warn the beast rages now that its flame has been snuffed out. The calculating dragon snaps into a master swordsman's stance, its weapon leveled and ready to strike. Recognition slams into Fillain. This stance is the training school's opening sword drill. Desperation claws at them as they lock onto a massive discarded shield, torn over whether to dive behind it and cling to life. The creature smirks, and suddenly their cunning plan slams into them with horrifying clarity. Yukikazu freezes as realization hits like a thunderclap. The dragon actually laughed at their makeshift cover. It hits him, its intelligence turns it into a far deadlier opponent than he'd expected. Yukikazu roars for his companions to dive behind the massive shield. A malevolent blaze flares in the dragon's eye as it coils, ready to unleash its technique. It rips through the air, unleashing a crushing, sweeping arc of energy, the technique called Acceler. At the final heartbeat, Yukikazu catapults himself away, yanking his companions into safety. A grim smile tears across his face as he triumphantly proclaims his prediction true. He read the dragon's move. It would slam into their cover, ripping open a split-second gap. His weapon crackles to life as he hurtles forward to strike. He zeroes in on the dragon's glowing crystalline core in its chest, breath steady and finger poised for the perfect, deadly shot. He slams his weapon, and a torrential storm of crystalline daggers bursts forth, countless blades ripping the sky apart. The dragon's core starts to splinter beneath a merciless, laser-focused onslaught. A last agonized growl rips from the beast as the fatal blow slams home. Its life force bleeds away as its core is utterly obliterated. The colossal beast convulses, its whole body rattling from the devastating impact. Its head crashed into the ground with a heavy, final thud. Its jaw fell slack. Yukikazu exhales a long, weary sigh, the tension at last uncoiling from his shoulders. He crashed to the ground, utterly spent and rasped, "The battle is finally over." He froze, baffled. The kill had given him no experience points. Fillain launches into her theory about why that might be. Her eyes go wide. They actually went toe-to-toe with a first-generation bio-dragon. Yukikazu leaned in and demanded she spell out exactly what a dragoon was. She reveals the core is a crystal that doubles as the boarding seat. Fillain gasped at the savage force of Yukikazu's weapon as it ripped its heart out. A jagged bolt of pain rips through Yukikazu, wrenching a sharp wince from him. He clutched his chest, panic flaring. His erosion rate was surging out of control. He snaps Fillain's concern aside with a sharp shrug, gritting his teeth through the pain and insisting he's fine. Fillain grins, declaring the dragon's scales are potent, game-changing materials for crafting. They tore it open, siphoned blood into jars, and chipped away bone to stash for later. A hulking stone door thunders open before the triumphant but exhausted trio. Fillain dares to hope that now the battle test is over, they'll finally be able to return. Yukikazu scanned the area, spotted no sign of new enemies, and ordered the team to push further in. They burst into a cavernous hangar, tiny silhouettes swallowed by towering, hulking weapons. It hits them, the place has to be a weapons depot or a hangar packed with dragoons. Phil fixes his gaze on the facility's shadowed halls, picturing its grim past as a possible execution ground. Unease crackled through Yukikazu as he barked that he hated this place and the murky, unknown path ahead. Their journey slams them into a cavernous chamber lined with towering, crystal-clear tanks. Inside one of the containment units, bubbles surged upward through crystal-clear liquid. A cold realization slams into Yukikazu. These are the very tanks that once held the first dragon. Fillain's breath kills in his throat as he rips open the other tanks and finds only bleached skeletons staring back. Bolt lets out a low, anxious whimper, eyes locked on the chilling sight before them. One tank cradles a magnificent white dragon, curled in peaceful slumber inside. The creature hovered beneath the liquid, encircled by a halo of tiny pods bobbing like watchful eyes. I cranked the pump and my blood ran cold as the gas pulsed, a living specimen, inside the dragoon production plant. Relief floods Yukikazu as he convinces himself the dormant creature poses no immediate threat. Fillain's eyes locked on its tiny frame. It looked like a child. Her eyes blaze as she whispers, "This could be a first-generation bio-dragoon." A holographic window bursts into view, flashing the label "White Puppy Grow Up." The codename throws Fillain for a loop, but he swallows his confusion, forces a nod, and accepts the creature's identification. She pleads, voice shot through with hope, that they'll register the creature and claim it for their own use. An excited Fillain insists a mighty weapon will skyrocket their chances of survival. Yukikazu calls it out. Lacking the writing skill is the real, practical problem. He smirks and drops the bomb. He actually wields that exact skill. Fillain freezes, eyes wide, voice cracking as he declares this power, a rare ability reserved exclusively for knights. His companions gaped, jaws dropping at his freakishly convenient arsenal of skills. Fillain slams her shock aside and charges the nearby terminal, resolve burning in her eyes. She holds her breath, praying the key they unearthed will work, as Yukikazu runs the whole process over in his head. The key snapped into the lock and instantly granted access. It doubled as the facility's security pass. She commands Yukikazu to press his hand to the terminal and receive his certification. Heart hammering, he plants his gloved palm against the screen and kicks the sequence to life. The tank drains dry, and the white dragon's razor-bright, calculating eye bursts open. Its slitted pupil snaps into focus. The creature explodes from slumber, fully awake. A hulking, scaled foot explodes out of the containment unit, slamming down its first step. They snapped into a tense, instinctive brace, muscles coiling, as a magnificent dragon burst into view. The newly awakened dragoon unleashes a thunderous roar that tears through the air and reverberates across the land. It burrows a warm, affectionate nuzzle into a startled, overwhelmed Yukikazu. Fillain's grin explodes as he shouts that the creature has accepted Yukikazu as its owner. He stammers, points at Fillain and Bolt, and forces out to the dragon that they're his comrades. The dragon's gaze snaps to the Bolt, curious drool beating at the corners of its mouth. Yukikazu sprang forward, roaring that Bolt is a comrade, not food. It cocked its head, obedient and laser-focused, as if the command had just clicked and it finally understood. He reels, breath caught at the surreal truth. He's become a dragon's owner. In a heartbeat, the party's ranks swelled as a formidable new ally stepped into the fray. The Bolt quivers, drool still clinging, fixing a silent, accusing stare that screams doubt at that assessment. Fillain's eyes lit up like twin stars as she practically begged them to ride the dragoon. Yukikazu feels the excitement crackle off her and knows this is the mechanic's dream she's been chasing. He snaps, there's no saddle to ride on. The dragoon unleashes a deafening cry, snapping its head around to lock its gaze squarely on Yukikazu. The massive blue jewel embedded in its chest erupts, spilling a fierce inner light. A soft whir hummed as the dazzling jewel cleaved open, its halves sliding apart with silk-smooth precision. Yukikazu gapes, breath stolen by the massive, intricately carved blue gem. It hits him, a boarding seat, welded straight into the dragon's body. Fillain whoops with glee, yells she'll go first, and scrambles inside. The moment she slips into the hidden cockpit, a twisting storm of dark energy surges up and wraps her in living shadow. Yukikazu braced to follow, then the dragon bellowed a thunderous no. Confusion tightened his throat as he asked, "What's wrong?" It shook its head over and over, utterly insistent. He leans in and gingerly prods its leg, trying to pry out the reason for its protest. A brutal realization explodes through him as he stares at his pack of luggage. Doubt claws at him. Can he even ride with that massive pack strapped on? From inside, Phillies pipes up, plotting to make the dragoon shoulder all their luggage. She snapped, "Hurry, get into the mysterious cockpit." A dark, swirling maelstrom of energy engulfs Yukikazu and yanks him into its void. Shock slammed into him, his eyes snapped wide at the bizarre, lightning-fast way they'd slipped inside. Fillain grandly reveals a pilot's seat, bristling with jaw-dropping, cutting-edge tech. He probes the intricate machinery churning inside a living creature, desperate for answers. Buzzing to begin the journey, Fillain snaps, grab the handle. Yukikazu dropped into her seat, picturing the hatch slamming shut just like she'd instructed. Outside, the large blue jewel hatch sealed itself shut with a bone-rattling thud. The cockpit's monitor quivers, then snaps to life with a grainy shot of the room outside. They freeze as realization slams into them. They're seeing the world through the dragon's eyes. A sudden shock ripped through Yukikazu for a heartbeat as a bizarre, disorienting new perception slammed into him. A status screen explodes into being before him, freezing him mid-breath as he gapes at its jaw-dropping display. His blood runs cold as the already dangerous erosion rate spikes again. A strange new skill explodes to life inside him. He senses it sharp and foreign, but can't name it. Another screen ripped into his vision, flashing the dragon's status. He practically salivates, its stats stare back in cold, precise numbers. The system urges you to suit the dragoon up in battle gear. He gasps as the dragon's senses slam into his mind while it hoists their pack. The sheer wonder of this fantasy world rips the air from his lungs and drops him breathless for a heartbeat. They bolt back to the hangar to grab the exact gear they need for it. Yukikazu leans in, drinking the soft, joyful laughter Fillain spills from atop his shoulders. Fillain whooped as elation exploded through her. At last she mounted a dragoon, her dream blazing into reality. Her genuine smile hits him like sunlight, and he knows every sacrifice was worth it. At the sight, Yukikazu's face split into a wide, satisfied grin. Their dragoon, the white puppy, now stands head-to-paw clad in gleaming combat armor. After scouring the facility, Yukikazu urges them to head outside. He whips to Fillain and snaps, "Do you think we can take on these monsters?" Fillain's lips curl into a soft, confident smile as she fixes him with a steady, knowing gaze. She locks eyes with him, voice steady as steel, and promises they'll be okay. Outside, he panics that their gleaming white dragoon sticks out like a beacon. Fillain nods, then leans in and rips the veil off the real problem, laying it out with brutal clarity. A monstrous guttural roar rips through the field of grass, shattering the silence. Two colossal beasts erupted into view, a towering Toronto lizard rearing its jaws, and a needled tricera charging with horns like living spears. Yukikazu sizes up the threat, dead certain their dragoon will tear them apart. Eyes blazing with excitement, he thundered, "Time for a test run." The Tyrannolizard lunged forward as the dragoon unleashed a thunderous war cry. The needled tricero charges into the fray, unleashing a relentless hail of razor-sharp spikes. A hail of projectiles slams into the dragoon's colossal shield, detonating into harmless sparks that scatter and fizzle away. The dragoon roots itself as its new armor swallows each strike, proving its immense worth. Fillain whooped at the effortless victory, shouting praise for the dragoon's crushing might. Yukikazu cracks a confident grin, satisfaction roaring through him as his battle plan proves safe and perfectly effective. Their celebration explodes into silence as a new, bone-deep roar rips through the air. A colossal two-headed water-green maw rips into view, towering and dwarfing them all. The dragoon locks eyes with the massive Orthus, muscles coiled as they brace to erupt into a brutal new battle. Clocking the enemy's blistering speed, Yukikazu snapped an order, and his dragoon rocketed into a super jump to evade the attack. The magnificent white creature rocketed into the sky as its pilot smirked, convinced victory was already theirs. Certainty burned through him as he masterminded their next move, victory already within his sights. Perched high above, the dragoon obeys the command and rips the sky open with a cataclysmic star breath. The energy beam whips past the spry Orthus and detonates in the grass beside it, sending a harmless spray of dirt and sparks into the air. The monstrous beast rockets into the sky, hurtling after its target. It lunged, driving its razor fangs deep into the dragoon's armored arm, clamping down in a vicious, teeth-grinding bite. Yukikazu howled as a phantom jolt of pain seared through him from the brutal attack on his companion. Dread explodes in him. This Orthus is blisteringly faster than the one they fought before. The white dragoon thrashes and rips, muscles screaming as he strains to pry the creature's jaws open. Yukikazu forced his breath steady, clinging to the belief the dragoon could smash its way through with raw, unstoppable force. Thick black ichor dripped from the dragoon's wound, stark proof of the brutal damage it had taken. The wounded dragoon rips out a raw, pain-soaked growl and bares razor teeth in fierce defiance. Guilt ripped through Yukikazu as he watched his living partner writhe in agony. He drops to his knees, voice cracking, and pours out an honest apology to the struggling creature for his tactical miscalculation. The dragoon cocked its head, a soft, questioning cry spilling out like a tentative answer to his words. From the cockpit, Fillain's breath catches. This dragoon isn't cold metal, it's alive. Yukikazu steels himself and admits the truth. When the creature is wounded, pain rips through it. He steps forward, shoulders the blame, and confesses it's entirely his fault. Conviction blazing, he roars that from now on they'll give everything, together, as a team. The dragoon rips the air with a thunderous roar as its spirit fuses with the pilot's iron resolve. The dragoon flings its maw wide and rips out another star breath, a roaring, swirling blast of pure energy. Once again, the energy beam streaks past its target, slamming into the ground as the earth shudders and snaps back into place. Yukikazu's eyes snapped. This beast predicts the attack by reading the cannon's pre-fire movements and strikes before the shot. A razor-sharp strategy snaps into focus in his mind. A flash hits him. The dragoon can use sword skills, so he barks an order, axle air. He can't shake the thought, are his piloting skills directly feeding the dragoon's abilities? Horror seized them as a second, identical author burst from the tall grass. Fillain's alarm shatters the silence as Yukikazu pinpoints the enemy's disorienting blink mirage skill. He makes the call, unleash a sweeping, wide-range technique. It's their only shot against the doubles. Command rips through the air. The dragoon answers with a thunderous roar, blasting a brilliant, expanding wave of shine breath. Fillain snaps at Yukikazu, urgent and breathless. Their breath attack count is running dangerously low. The Orthus tore the sky with a defiant roar, as if the Yandere energy attack hadn't even scratched it. Yukikazu clamped his hands on the controls, eyes narrowing into razor focus as he readied his next move. The dragoon plummets from the sky and unleashes a titanic power slash that cleaves through both of the author's clones. Yukikazu's memory snaps into place. This is the sweeping, wide-arc sword skill they learned at the training school. The devastating blow lands, slamming the monstrous beast into the ground with a thunderous, violent crash. The dragoon touches down with deadly grace and towers triumphant over its fallen foe. Gasping and spent, the trio cram into the cockpit and erupt in wild cheers, savoring their hard-won victory. Yukikazu finally relaxed, then another menacing roar blasted through the air and ripped his relief away. Two more smaller Orthoses burst from the grass, snarling and baring their fangs at the dragoon. Fillain's voice went cold, their reinforcements, probably the offspring of the one we just killed. Yukikazu steeled himself. One final step would decide whether they lived or died. The dragoon unleashed a thunderous roar, bracing to charge head-on into the new final threat. Sometime later, the final battle fell victory at last. The status screen blazed to life, laying bare the dragoon's packed arsenal and the shrinking meters of its remaining energy. Yukikazu drops to his knees, voice breaking as he apologizes to his dragoon and blames his own incompetence for every wound it bears. The dragoon nudges him with a tender nuzzle, forgiveness pouring out and sealing an unbreakable bond. Fillain watches the link between them spark to life, and Yukikazu reels as the creature erupts in sudden, blazing jealousy. A low, envious growl rips from the dragoon the instant he spots Bolt. The group piles the slain monsters' carcasses in the field, laying their bloodied remains before the ravenous creatures. A colossal bone, picked clean, rests on the ground, the lone remnant of the dragoon's hearty meal. The small dragon tears into the bones, crunching them with gleeful ferocity as the hunger from its long sleep finally surrenders. Yukikazu vows with a wicked grin, once they collect the magic stones, the dragoon will get to devour the last Orthros. They snap their heads, eyes locking onto a new, intriguing feature carved into the landscape. They stumble upon a yawning, jagged cave mouth, black and alive, promising mystery and danger. The dragoon zeroes in. This must be an Orthristan. Now the reason they were attacked snaps into place. Yukikazu points to the entrance and urges them to sweep inside. Every last monster is gone. He edges up to the mouth of the newly discovered cave and peers into its jagged, rocky maw as darkness hungrily swallows the light. His eyes snapped wide as shock and astonishment slammed into him at the sight within. At the heart of the den, a magnificent, ornate treasure chest dominates the gloom, its jewels flashing like lightning. The tiny dragon froze, eyes glued to the chest's colossal, jaw-dropping beauty. Yukikazu slices through the silence, warning that a chest of this class could be a lethal trap. His gaze zeroes in on a complex, bullseye-like sigil etched into the chest's intricate lock. Fillain's eyes went wide as Yukikazu's skill pinpointed the hidden magical trap and disarmed it in a heartbeat. Scales glinting, a dragoon-scaled hand plunges into the chest and hauls out a massive, ornate pocket watch. Yukikazu and Phillies gaped, hearts slamming at the impossible treasure they'd just unearthed. Fillain erupts in giddy triumph, shouting that it's the powerful pocket watch of return, a cutting-edge escape device. Bolt stared, confused, then dawning realization hit him as he began to grasp the item's staggering significance. Yukikazu's blood runs cold as he finally grasps the truth. This floor was engineered to bury any ordinary escape item. It hits him dungeon rule. When a higher-grade item spawns, it smothers any chance of lower-grade drops. A grim truth hits him. They'd have been trapped if they hadn't torn through all the Orthoses. Even as their world smoldered around them, a fierce relief crashed through him. They're all now safe. Yukikazu's grin burst wide as they cheered that they could finally go home. White Puppy slams a palm on the watch, fuel confirmed, and punches in the escape coordinates. Fillain's gloved hand glides over the watch face, coaxing the settings into place with a delicate, expert touch. Bolt's gaze rockets to his two companions, tears of gratitude pooling in his eyes for their efforts. Fillain beams at Bolt, warmth pouring from his smile as he's thrilled Bolt can leave with Yukikazu. The dragoon roared and blasted off at last on the journey they'd been waiting for. Fillain barked, setups locked, we're waiting for the needle to slam into 12 o'clock. The ornate watch's hands clicked, relentlessly sweeping toward the final activation point. A searing flash rips from the watch, instantly swallowing the tiny dragon in blinding light. A mysterious voice blesses them, then drops a chill warning. Harsher trials lie ahead on their path. Soldiers posted in a forest clearing jolted upright as a sudden, uncanny phenomenon exploded into being before them. A fully armored White Puppy explodes out of a shaft of light, blinking and staggering, dazed from the teleport. Panic ripped through the ranks as soldiers screamed that a dragon had just erupted from thin air. Yukikazu shoots his hand up, steel in his voice, as he prepares to proclaim their formal return to the military. He, Fillain, and Bolt ripped free from a screaming vortex and shouted that they needed to see Senior Knight Leela. They called for a meeting with their superior officer, the request ricocheting through the clearing. Now shrunk back into its smaller form, the dragoon wails a raw, lonely cry. The trio spun around, dread erupting in their chests as soldiers marched their mighty companion away. Yukikazu clings to the hope they'll come back later to reclaim the dragoon. He snaps just as they'd expected. Their powerful new ally has been confiscated. Relief explodes across his face, a grin ripping free as he realizes they all made it back in one piece. Pandemonium burst loose when recruits once thought dead stormed back astride a roaring dragoon. Yukikazu endures a tense medical check at the facility as doctors scan him head to toe to confirm he's safe. He raged over the seized supplies, but a fierce relief washed through him. His magic blessing was still his. Silence shatters outside their door as a frantic voice begs someone to stop. Yukikazu and his friends huddle at the curtain, pulse pounding, desperate to glimpse what's hiding just beyond it. A voice from the hallway roars to bar the doorway, shouting that injured people are inside. From the hallway, an arrogant voice boomed, proclaiming its noble rank and barking for everyone to step aside. A boot slammed the doors open, wood exploding into splinters as a thunderous crash ripped through the room. Travis, his mustache curled into a sneer and clad in uniform, storms into the room with his subordinates at his heels. Inside, Yukikazu, Fillain, and Boltcrest react froze, shock detonating through them as they locked eyes with their treacherous captain. Trebuch explodes, instantly accusing Yukikazu of endangering the entire troop by opening the treasure chest. Yukikazu reels from the brazen lie, eyes flashing as he snaps, "Did I just hear that?" Yukikazu and Fillain erupted, roaring with fury as they insisted Trebuch was the one who had abandoned them. Travis's two cronies pounced, loudly lying they'd witnessed the recruits' supposed insubordination. They lock arms and testify in unison that the recruits brazenly ignored their captain's direct orders. Travis sneers, a venomous grin curling, as he taunts aloud why Senior Knight Leela hasn't executed them yet. Leela Grimley's blood ran cold as the truth snapped into place. They'd choreographed their stories to frame the three survivors. Deciding to strike before she returns, Travis rips his sword free, murder burning in his eyes. Panic explodes in the unarmed trio as they realize the deadly odds of facing three armed opponents. Travis lunges forward, roaring "Die, Yukikazu," while the young man watches with unnerving calm. His level spiked, and suddenly his attackers jerked through slow motion while he moved with blinding calm. Spotting the opening, he pounced and unleashed a savage counterattack. He snatches the bedsheet in a flash and slams it into his opponent's face, plunging their eyes into blinding fabric for a heartbeat. A savage strike ripped the sword from Travis' hand, sending it clattering to the floor. Yukikazu lunges and snatches the fallen weapon, eyes razor-focused, every muscle coiled for battle. He exploded forward and buried his sword deep in Trebuch's leg. Travis tore out a raw, guttural howl of agony from the painful, unexpected wound. His two subordinates barreled forward, hurling threats at the now-armed Yukikazu. Bolt roars defiantly, coiling to hurl himself into the fray to protect his friends. The small orc knotted his deceptively powerful muscles, a coiled spring poised to explode into attack. Bolcrest charges like a battering ram and drives a thunderous headbutt into the two soldiers, blasting them skyward. Both cronies crumpled, lights out in a heartbeat. The fight died before it could even begin. Yukikazu and Boltcrest slam a cheerful high five, beaming after their easy victory. He fixes the exhausted Bolt with a hard stare and vows he'll take full responsibility for everything. A jagged bolt of electricity roars through the wounded Trebuch, ripping a gut-wrenching scream from its throat. Yukikazu and Bolt froze, eyes wide, utterly bewildered as the unexpected event unfolded before them. Fillain charged forward, crackling arcs of energy leaping from her hands and a confident grin fixed on her face. The electricity that crackled across the floor at her feet sizzles out after her devastating strike. She flashes a fierce smile and vows Yukikazu won't be left to shoulder all the blame. Grateful Yukikazu pours out her thanks as the woman smirks and snarks about Trebuch's sudden politeness. Travis's face snaps into savage fury as he swears he'll make every last one of them wish they'd never been born. A new commanding voice slices through the air, snapping, "How does he keep slipping past our surveillance?" Senior Knight Leela burst onto the scene. Yukikazu's eyes went wide, then relief crashed over him like a tidal wave. That very night someone immediately tries to have the recruits arrested, hurling a list of supposed crimes at them. Leela plants herself in front of them as Fillain pours out a never-ending litany of their troubles. The senior knight burst in, breathless, apologizing for arriving late and for forcing them to face such trash. She admits, voice tight with regret, her rescue team could climb no higher than the 21st floor. Leela erupts into praise, hailing them for hauling themselves back alone from that treacherous abyss. She reached out and planted a gentle hand on Yukikazu's arm, a sincere anchor of reassurance. A warm smile blooms on her face as she thanks recruit Tatsuka for keeping his promise to her. Yukikazu goes betrayed and blurts, "What promise are you talking about?" Fillain narrows his eyes at the man's stammer, curiosity snapping to life over the promise he supposedly made. Leela locked eyes with him, her face a flawless mask, daring him to speak as she waited for his reply. Travis detonates with rage, snapping, "Why are you siding with commoners?" She snaps back, icy and unshaken, saying her investigation exposed glaring problems in everything he did. Leela brandishes the watch-like device she'd given Yukikazu before the mission. Recognition slams into him. It's the accessory they were issued in the dungeon. Yukikazu's memory snaps to that ghostly voice that sliced the silence and announced the treasure's presence. Flashback explodes. Trebuch snarls threats at his own recruits and brazenly defies Leela's direct orders. A cold realization slams into Yukikazu. Leela knew about the trap, and she won't let Trebuch get away with acting innocent. Cornered Trebuch spits slander, shredding the recruits' credibility with crude insults. Then he scoffs, daring them, "Would you even heed someone higher ranked?" An elegant, breathtakingly beautiful young woman with long blonde hair glides into view. She materialized without warning, and Trebuch and his men froze, dumbstruck and silent. Yukikazu stood transfixed as her breathtaking beauty and unmistakable air of nobility stole his breath. She strode forward and declared, "I'm Serena Kronleraria, the reigning king's daughter." A gentle, disarming smile blooms on her face as she voices a sincere hope that they can all get along. The name Leraria hits him like lightning, and Yukikazu's chest jolts with the crashing truth. She's the princess. Princess Serena whipped her gaze to Trebuch and hurled his full name like a thrown gauntlet. Her voice flat as steel, she drops the bomb. His own family is stripping him of his noble title. Panic explodes from Trebuch as she desperately pleads, insisting it's all a misunderstanding born of false information. She scoffs at his pleas, cuts him off, and vows to expose every failing that marks him as a noble. She drops a bombshell. Fillain is her best friend and a princess of an allied kingdom. Yukikazu and Bolt stagger back, jaws dropping as the revelation explodes and shatters everything they thought was true. Serena rips into Trebuch, accusing him of nearly sparking a diplomatic firestorm between their nations. She leans in, voice dropping, and reveals Yukikazu was personally recommended for service by someone of very high rank. Horror floods Trebuch's face as the crushing weight of his transgressions crashes down on him. He crumples to the ground, a screaming wreck, clutching his head as despair and defeat devour him. Guards hauled the shattered man away as he croaked that he'd been framed. When the dust settled, Yukikazu swallowed hard and, voice trembling, dared to call Fillain by her new title. Flushed and stammering, the villain waves off her royal title, insisting that with a swarm of siblings and no inheritance, she has nothing to claim. She swore with blazing conviction she wouldn't let anyone turn him into a political pawn. Serena pulls her friend into a fierce hug and swears she'll move heaven and earth to help her marry someone she truly loves. The two princesses locked hands, a fierce, honest bond flaring to life between them. Serena snaps that the moment she heard her dear friend was in trouble, she barreled here. She drops to her knees, sobs tearing out of her as pure relief floods her. Fillain survived that terrifying ordeal. Fillain's eyes flared with gratitude, every pent-up feeling trembling on the brink of explosion. A lone tear breaks free, relief crashing through her as her eyes lock onto her best friend. Yukikazu bows his head and apologizes for all the trouble. Leela's eyes flash as she declares a crucial question still hangs unanswered. Serena pins the hunt for whoever busted Trebuch out of his cell on Leela. The princess's expression went stone cold. She truly meant to take her breaks, and she snapped around, locking eyes on Bolt. With a mischievous giggle, she delivers a teasing, feather-light prod to the tiny, startled orc. Bolt jolted as a curious fingertip grazed his ear. Serena, trembling with glee, bombards a weary Leela with a breathless, reverent retelling of the precious moment she touched an orc right here. Leela lunges to intervene, shouting a desperate warning about the people's searing prejudice against orcs. Yukikazu and Fillain leap to Bolt's defense, voices blazing as they declare he's a good, kind person. Hearing this, Serena erupts with raw gratitude, her voice burning as she thanks Bolt for saving her friend. A warm smile unfurls on the princess's face as she embraces their fierce defense of the tiny, heroic creature. With Travis now behind bars, Serene drops the bomb. His entire troop has been disbanded. She exclaims that their massive level surge now qualifies them for a spot in a real combat unit. Yukikazu and Fillain lock eyes, worry flashing like a warning light as they brace for the assignments waiting in their future. Fillain watches, pensive and on edge, eyes distant as a quiet storm of worry churns through his thoughts. They huddled shoulder to shoulder, breath held, eyes locked on the avalanche of change about to crash into their lives. Serena's gaze snaps to Leela, whose pensive eyes are locked on the two young recruits. The princess locks eyes with her friend Fillain, her face softening into a gentle, knowing smile. Serena flashes a sly smile, tosses out a flimsy excuse, and slips away, leaving the two of them alone. Princess Serena's smile radiates warmth as she urges, "Let's talk again, we're finally reunited." Tears streaking down her face, Philly's murmurs, "Yes, name." Serena pivots and glides down the long, hushed corridor, slipping out of sight. Back in the debriefing room, Leela proclaims the state has greenlit their claim to the supplies. She urges that donating a few items to the country would rocket their evaluation. Fillain demands the truth about the dragoon. Leela snaps that it's an exception, seized for research. Brooding Yukikazu aches to at least rush over and see his formidable companion. He leans in and asks about the mysterious cargo. The weapons Fillain scoffs and confirms it's brutally powerful. Leela shrugs, confessing she can't fill in the specifics. Her sole mission is to return it to transport. She erupted in praise, declaring their grueling training had clearly paid off. From outside, the recruits snap to attention and bark a crisp, formal, "Yes, ma'am." Leela skids to a halt and calls out, recruiting Tatsuka. Her expression hardened. She fixed him with a grave look and told him they had to talk in private. Blindsided, Yukikazu froze as a single, baffled cry ripped from his throat. Echoing footsteps sliced the silence, signaling we'd crossed into a new place. An officer flanks Yukikazu, ushering him down a hallway so outrageously ornate it steals your breath. Jaw-dropping, he freezes before the palatial facade, half expecting it to be a guest house for royalty. He freezes, stunned the princess would summon him to a place so opulent. As they arrive, his escort lines in and hisses a sharp warning, "Don't be rude." In the grand chamber, Princess Serena receives Tatsuka, a soft smile lighting her face. He snaps to attention and barks, "I'm a recruit from Lauraria, reporting." The princess beckons him closer, urging him to drop his guard and speak his mind as she pats the seat beside her. Steam curls from the tea service between them as she leans in, eyes blazing, and declares she needs to ask him some questions. She lifts her teacup, a gentle smile softening her face as she steels herself to launch her first question. She locked eyes with him and demanded, "Are you an otherworldly warrior?" The question landed like a sucker punch, leaving him utterly stunned, jaw dropped and his voice ripped from his throat.